full board. First item is acceptance of minutes. We have May 6th.
Gonna hold them, Jen.
What?
I'm holding May 6th.
Okay, let's hold them. Okay, so we have May 20th. Anybody have any issues with May 20th? No? How about June 17th? It's a new. I haven't seen August 19th. Those even out?
Yeah, did we get those? August 19th? Okay.
All right, so scratch that. So I'll make a motion to approve minutes of May 20th and June 17th.
Second.
There's a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstain. Okay, so May 6th on hold till next time, and August 19th will come up at the next time. Next item on the business before we start into the other stuff is Tall Pines tripartite. Okay, and Kyle, this is what you sent to us a while ago and didn't do it last time, so Tall Pines, are we all set to take it over?
Mr. Chair, yes, I did send a memo to the board August 10th. I provided the bond estimate that we had done earlier this year and the value of funds that the developer is willing to provide, and the value of the work are very close. So given the fact that the developer doesn't appear to be, hasn't done anything since in the 2 years I've been here, and they're offering it up, I think it would be the right thing to do is to take the money and we'll finish that road up.
Okay, does anybody have any questions on that?
So the two numbers, we're looking at the 87,000 and the 88,000.
Yes, correct.
And the town will, they outsource it or do it themselves?
A good deal of the work is paving and sidewalks and roadways and things like that. They're things that we carry in our regular annual paving contract items, so it'll be outsourced but under contracts that are either in place or will be in place. There may be some specialty items that we have to either do ourselves or go out for.
All right. That being said, I'll make a motion that we send a memo to town council, ask them to start the process of pulling the bond, so to speak, with the tripartite.
Second.
Second, any further discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Now, regards to in the future, Kyle, you said at the bottom, well, one of the things that we need is, we don't inspect these, so we have no idea what goes on, so one thing would be for you to report back to us, and as they get closer, so that we understand where they are. 'Cause you guys gotta inspect them, we have no idea.
Yeah,
So what-
I understand, Mr. Chairman, but even if we inspect them, there's not that much we can do either to keep somebody from walking away from it. Fortunately, the value left
Okay,
here
well,
is
what you-
similar to it.
Okay, very simple, Kyle. We have a 2-year bond. If he gets within the 6 months and he ain't moving, then we get him in here. You want action, that's the action we can do. And if he isn't gonna do it, so it'll be up to us. But we've had over the years that nobody ever tells us what status anybody is, because we don't go around looking at them, so that's my suggestion. That's one way of doing it. You report back to us every step of the way in each subdivision, and when it gets close and it doesn't look like anything's moving forward in the 2 years, within the 6-month period, we get them back and figure out what's going on. So,
Can I ask a question?
yep.
What would our, I don't wanna say our hands are tied, but what would our recourse be when we bring them in if they're not moving fast enough?
We can
Would
put-
they've already pulled the bond?
No, not pulling it, we haven't
No, I
pulled
mean,
it.
they've already produced the bond, so the bond is still valid.
So we don't have to give them an extension. At the end of that period, we can pull the whole thing.
Okay.
But we keep on them, because the guys aren't gonna do it. And the one thing I will say, and I've done it for 30 years, if I hear one more person, well, we don't wanna pay them until it's all done. My opinion is, I don't care, is if you buy a house on a subdivision, you expect the final road to be done. You shouldn't have to wait 5, 7 years just for the whole road to look pretty. And if someone chews it up on an individual house, then it's up to the town to go after them, no different than they, on your house, in front of your house, someone did something, it'll be up to the town to go get them, so. We need, if you want a way, Kyle, this is a way. You report back to us and tell us, and then we just start pushing it. That's my suggestion. All right. Olmsted, right, that's done, correct?
Correct.
All right, we have nothing there, okay? So we'll have to schedule a residence hearing, and when would we like to do that, Kate?
I don't have my calendar in front of me, hold on. I don't think I have time to do October.
We don't have to do it anytime
September
soon. This
16th.
will not
How
be-
about October 7th?
Well, my opinion is this isn't gonna make it until next spring, to be on the warrant. Right?
We can do it.
No, we can't, the warrant's closed.
No, Mr. Chair, the road acceptances are on the warrant.
What road is, who put them on the warrant?
We did.
Oh,
I did.
we haven't voted these. How did that, Con,
He
you gotta-
used a place marker, like,
Yeah, but unfortunately, the warrant, the call for articles and whatnot is very early, all right? And this had not progressed that far at that time, but the road is ready, so it is on the warrant.
Yeah, but,
As a matter of fact, the FinCom's considering it tonight.
well, I've never had this done like this. This is typically for us to make the, and vote to release it. But we gotta have the residents hearing before that. This is good. All right, well, put a residents hearing, I don't know, first meeting in October. Give them enough time, because we're jammed on the 16th of September, right?
yeah, it's not enough time to, well, if I can, it's not enough time to
Yeah,
advertise.
I mean, I'm not gonna sit and do a residents hearing the night where we're just jammed with all this
Right.
stuff. All right. Make a motion for residents hearing on October, what's the date?
7th.
Okay. We have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? October 7th. Okay.
Do we also have town meeting zoning article, like public hearing that night? Nothing's been said, I don't know, do we?
Can't schedule it until we get it from the selectmen.
Oh, okay, okay.
We could probably go, it's probably the night it's gonna go, but we
Yeah.
can't do it until we get it. If
Okay.
it never comes down in time, we can't do it.
Okay.
All right, with the hour being after 7:05, we have a scenic road hearing for Peach Street.
Jack Justice is here, the Walpole Tree Warden in the
Yep.
front row, okay.
I'll let him present, then you get your shot, okay? We have the advertisement page.
I gave it to you with them.
You did? Wasn't with this. Okay, in accordance with Chapter 40, Section 15C, Scenic Road Act of Mass General Laws, Chapter 87, notice hereby given the Walpole Planning Board and the Walpole Tree Warden will hold a joint scenic road public hearing Thursday, September 2nd at 7:05, per the request of ID Associates. Said public hearing will be held to allow the removal and reconstruction of 63 feet of stone wall located at 38 Peach Street. So with that being said, the hearing is open. All right, Mr. American?
All set, Mr. Chairman. Dan American with Legacy Engineering here on behalf of the applicant. This is associated with the New World Estate subdivision. We filed a scenic road application. The sheet is a scenic road. The scenic road regulations address two topics. One is street trees, which are trees in the street layout. There are no street trees in this area that we would be impacting. The second topic that the regulations address is stone walls that are in or partially in the town's street layout for Peach Street. And we do have, it's more of a granite block wall. It's not a traditional fieldstone wall. It's a granite block wall with a white picket fence mounted to the top of it. It is partially in the street layout. To accommodate the new road, we are proposing to remove 63 linear feet of that And we are proposing we have more footage of that wall and fence assembly inside our sites, which are not public walls. So we're proposing to take that excess material that we have inside and put 157 feet of new wall up along Bridge Street. So we would remove a section here, and then we would reconstruct around the rounding, the new road, and then we would reconstruct a wall and fence assembly along the entire remaining frontage and around this corner out here. So we're adding 3 times as much wall, twice as much wall, a little more than twice as much, 2.5 times as much wall as we're taking out.
All right, question that was put to me, and I have a question. Which plan was submitted, the first plan? What date?
The first plan was dated, I think it was 7/20.
Okay.
And then town engineer made some comments to me, so we submitted an updated plan dated 8/11 with basically some additional notations up here about a gravel base, burial depth, notations on the plan that would require the lot owners to maintain the wall sections.
Okay, the problem which we have now is the original plan's the only one that went out. We only have comments to that effect. It's not typical that we update before we even open the hearing.
Understood.
So we'll have to just deal with this one until we'll have to go with comments for the next time.
Okay.
Could you put your speakers on, because with the people in the
There
back.
are no speakers. You want me to yell?
No, well, maybe people loud. Can't hear you.
Yeah, we
All
can't
right.
hear what you're saying.
I can yell. Make me mad. Doesn't take much. What we have in front of us is the original plan went out to everybody, and he met with the town engineer, and what they found is they wanted to add some notes. The problem we have is when it went out to everybody, the only thing that everybody looked at and commented on, either from the outside people or other than the town engineer, was based upon the original. So we can't have a second plan in front of us. We have to put it out again to all the people and let them look at it.
No problem.
Okay. Now, the question is, and it's on this, Dan, how does does this affect your subdivision plan?
No.
So,
This plan sheet is in the subdivision plan.
okay, but I'm saying, nothing on your subdivision is gonna change.
The subdivision plan set that you have includes the latest scenic road plan. Had it for 2 weeks.
Okay, well, that's another one. All right, so, we'll just keep on going with this, and then we're gonna have to pick it up at another time. So, tree warden? No trees?
Yeah, there's no trees in the layout that can be affected by the wall.
No, the wall is on the layout line, there's no trees in front of the wall.
And you said you're adding more sections to it, is that along, or is that you just talking about the curve?
Yeah, we're adding a new section of wall from basically the corner of Morrissey Way, which is a private way, down along the frontage. There's nothing here now, and then it will come in and round the corner of the new subdivision.
So that new section intersects the
Okay, you all set? All right, anybody from the audience have any questions, comments relative to this scenic road? Okay, I'll turn it over to the board. Sarah, do you have any questions, comments?
No, I just was looking for the note from the engineer, but it looks like that has been updated and we have, or we're getting this sheet?
Kay has the plan.
Okay,
She'll circulate it.
Yeah,
for
I
the
didn't want to
next
give him
meeting.
tonight.
okay. That's my main question, thank you.
Okay, Phil?
Just one question. I drove by there today, so it looks like there's blue tape on the wall. Is that what's marking the area you're taking down?
Correct.
Yeah. And then, when you're replacing the fence, is that gonna be wooden like it is now? I noticed it's a Walpole Woodworkers fence.
I think so. I don't think the fence is part of the scenic road process, but yeah, I think the intent would be to make it wood. Discuss that with the applicant, yeah.
And when you put the granite blocks down, you're gonna be sensitive to the sides that have been weathered, so you'll keep it, make it look as it is.
Yeah, I mean, the
That's-
easiest way to do it is to disassemble existing wall sections as they're put together and build them back the same way, because it'll be the simplest way to reconstruct it, so that would be the way to do it.
Okay, good.
You know, it runs all the way up the right side of the existing driveway and partially up the left side, so there's a lot of material there that we can use.
Yeah, so preserving it and, you know, having the same look, obviously, is the intent, so thank you.
Okay.
As long as it's gonna replicate what's there, I'm okay with it, because we've talked about it within the other hearing, so.
John?
Is the fence gonna actually run across the entire subdivision front on Beach Street, or will there be a gap at the end? I can't tell from the map.
It looks like it's.
There's one small existing gap up here on the corner, there's an old cart path that comes
Yeah.
in, but other than that, it will be across the whole
Okay,
frontage
so that little
of the
gap.
subdivision.
And it looks like there is a comment on the first set of plans, fencing is to be wood and painted white, so you do have that on the.
It's on the
first
plan.
That's the only thing I have at the moment, yep.
Okay, and Carl, I know you did this with him already, and that's what it's reflected on the second plan. All right, we're gonna need an extension, Dan, because I don't have any comments.
Okay.
When's it run out, Kate?
I don't even know. Is it on the format?
It's 45 days, so it's been in, this is it for tonight.
Okay. We're gonna be-
Mr. Chair, is it possible for us to consider the plan if we have it in front of us?
We can do the plan,
Yeah.
but the risk they run is if something changes on this, then they have to redo that. Right?
What do you mean?
What I mean is, when we continue the hearing on the scenic road,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden it's discovered like one of the roundings or something has to be changed. We did your subdivision plan tonight. That's what Phil's asking. We approved it, but this changes on the next one. The subdivision plan will not be the same as what was approved, so you run that risk.
Yeah, I'm not worried about that, but I guess, I don't know if it makes sense to hold this open while we do the subdivision and then decide when the best time to continue would be, based on
Okay, well,
what your thoughts are on the subdivision plan.
all right, well, we'll hold this open right now and go to the subdivision plan. Okay?
Excuse me, but could all of you please use your mics?
These don't work.
They're not.
They only work at home. These are only cable mics.
Oh, they work.
is wrong.
They work.
What?
Tap it again, it's working.
Tap it, it tapped it. Tap, say. Yeah, man.
That's what they're for.
Yeah, we're having a tough time hearing you with the air conditioning.
Shut it off. I'll teach you. We got the subdivision, Kate?
Yep.
Okay.
This one's for you, the rest. I think I gave you.
It was in the,
Yeah.
packet.
There's nothing new, Jack, that's come in, other than,
No comments?
It's all-
It's a new plan, right?
excuse me? The plan that came in was, had 4 notes on it, 4 changes.
Yeah,
They were just basic, nothing.
you read comments from the town engineer at the last meeting. They were basically minor typographical types of changes. Those are the changes that were made on this
Okay.
plan.
The hour being after 7:06, I'll open the continued public hearing for New World Estates. And we are open, and the changes from last time, what?
Those were the items discussed in the town engineer's letter. We had some typos on the elevations in different locations of the plan for some of the stormwater basins. We fixed those. There really wasn't anything of substance in the plan revision.
Okay, Carl, did you have any comments? This final one here?
Yeah, only that, that the adjustments, plan adjustments that we called for, and I think in August, I'm looking for the letter right now, I think it was August 10th letter, were addressed in the latest submission, which I believe is August 11th.
Correct.
So they were addressed.
Mr. Chairman, you did receive by email this afternoon, although Kate wasn't able to print it out because it came very late, a memo from Paul Barry, Deputy Fire Chief. I have it here on my iPad if you want to see it. He basically says the fire hydrant locations are okay, and that I need to get the blessing of the fire chief for the street name, which I will do. That's about it.
Copy to us?
Yeah, it's in your inbox.
It came in at 4:30, I didn't get it.
Want to see it?
Yeah, sure. 4:30. Tick, 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 tick. How'd you do that? I know a guy can do the same thing and make it up, yeah. You laugh, but I do. All right,
No.
from Paul Barry, 38 Peach Street. Fire department reviewed it, and we find the hydrant locations on the north side to be acceptable. A reason behind it is that we often find hydrants located at the end of the cul-de-sac, inevitably buried under snow. We defer the determination of the necessity of the previous hydrants located at the end of the cul-de-sac to the water department. And the street name has not been proposed and approved by the town bylaws. The applicant should do that as soon as possible. And Paul does not do, Deputy Chief Paul Barry does not do the street names. You didn't submit one?
I did, but I got it through the fire department. I need to get the fire chief squared away with it, which I will do.
Did we talk about that last time?
We
you-
did. Yep.
What was the name?
Litchfield's Way.
Okay.
The hydrant issue is simply this. We always put a fire hydrant at the end of the cul-de-sac for flushing purposes. Deputy Chief Barry doesn't like it, as he said, because it can be buried in the snow. So he asked us to add one at the entrance to the cul-de-sac, which we did, but we still kept the one at the end because I think it's appropriate to have it there for flushing so you don't have water quality problems. But I'm happy to take it out if you disagree.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if you would, I discussed with Deputy Barry the 2 fire hydrants, which is unusual on a cul-de-sac. I understand the fire department's preference for location, and I think we can live without having one at the very end for flushing.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody on the board have a comment to that? Okay. All right. Is it shown on the plan?
It is.
Okay. I'll make a motion to delete the fire hydrant at the end of the cul-de-sac per recommendations of the town engineer. Another second?
Second.
Discussion? None? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, so delete.
Town engineer or the deputy fire chief?
Well, Kyle's told us about it.
Okay,
so.
all right.
Okay. Any other questions you had? I don't have any other comments. Anyone here for 38 Peach Street, the subdivision? Any questions, comments? Okay, being none, go this way. John, you got any questions, comments relative to this?
Don't have any new comments, no.
Okay. Kate?
Nothing new.
John? Phil?
Nothing new.
Sarah?
Nothing.
Okay, you got a big nothing.
Oh, I have one thing. Could you explain
Almost got
these-
out.
The pictures that you sent along? I'm just trying
Sarah
to
requested that
understand
we
what they're
submit some
supposed to be
pictures of what
representing.
vegetated stormwater basins look like, so I emailed those to Kate. It looks much nicer in the email than that picture you have.
This?
So these are what the
Yours
bottoms
is
of the
in color.
stormwater basins
Yours are
would look like, or the
Yeah,
edges,
it's
or?
basically a picture of a generic grassed stormwater basin.
Looks like weed.
Yeah, the picture in the email
Not
is much
weeds,
better.
weed.
That's like a blow-up of a portion of the photo.
Okay.
All right, so we took care of that. Now, I'll leave it to you, Dan. You can either close it, and vote it, or you can continue them both, or however.
Well, if you're gonna continue the scenic road hearing, when would you continue it to?
I saw it. I'm sorry?
We'll continue scenic road,
September 16th?
okay?
If you're gonna do that, we might as well just continue them both, and then we can button it all up
Okay.
together.
Do we need an extension for this one?
We gave through September
We're through
30.
Okay.
September 30 for this.
All right. All right, then we'll do it right now. We will continue this public hearing to September 16th at what time for Peach Street subdivision?
7:05, 7 o'clock,
7:01.
7:01.
So we can do our stuff first.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, we'll continue that. We're all set with that. Now, back to the scenic road. We have an extension through, up and through
Yeah,
September 30th.
request and grant an extension up through and including September 30th, 2021 for the scenic road application.
Okay, I'll make that in the form of motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Any further discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so you're all set. We'll see you on the
You're
16th,
gonna do it at
7:01, and the scenic
7:02.
road will be,
7:02.
no, because we're going, yeah, 7:02. Close enough.
Okay, very good.
Just have to flip back. I think I can handle it, maybe. All right, next up, as we're moving, is we have okay, well, past 7:20, okay, and we have a preliminary subdivision for Freiberger at 965 West Street, and,
The A&R's first.
what?
The A&R.
Yeah, but A&R's other business, it's not an appointment.
I did do an appointment because they were together.
Yeah, I understand that, well, let's see. Okay, Mr. Mackey, you have a preliminary, and you have the A&R. Does the A&R and the preliminary relate to each other?
They do.
So are you better off doing the preliminary than the A&R?
It'll probably answer most of your questions for the A&R. To jog your memory, the last time I was here on this, there's a question as to why we're creating Lot 1 and Parcel A. The preliminary subdivision plan explains exactly what we're doing with Parcel A, so it might be easier to talk through that first. And the only change to the A&R plan was the corrections that either you, Carl, or both caught, where in the zoning ordinance was changed to zoning bylaw to track our land.
My thoughts, Phil, is we could sit there and banter about the A&R, and then if we do that, we have the, what do you call it?
That's fine.
The preliminary, but your preliminary is gonna answer the A&R.
Yes,
That's why I wanna do that one.
and I think that makes perfect sense. That
Okay.
also has a lot to do with it.
Okay, we have in front of us a preliminary Form B for MF Landscape and Design by Dun and McKenzie, and we'll open it up. Just so anybody understands here, this is not a public hearing, the preliminaries are just nobody gets noticed. It's just that they have the right to come in and discuss what they want to do in the future for subdivision. So with that being said, Mr. Mackey, if you'd like to explain.
So with me here is Mike Freiberger and his wife. They're the owners of the property, and Mike is the principal, I guess, if you will, of MF Landscape, which has been a long-time Walpole business. And we got Scott Henderson, the engineer, here also, if we have any comments along those lines. Basically, what we're showing you here on the preliminary plan is Parcel A of the A&R, which is why I'm saying these two things are very much interrelated. When the A&R is endorsed, Parcel A cannot be separated unless, in some way, shape, or form, adequate frontage is provided and conforming lots, or at least one conforming lot, is shown. So what we propose to do here is Mike's house is already existing, and he's basically on this part of the lot. So you can see the existing house, that's where he and his wife live. And then Lot 1, which we will discuss later, is basically being separated out so that he can run his nursery business, which falls under agricultural use, and is allowed by right, but we'd still need to, I believe, come in front of you for site plan review, off of this subdivision, but on Lot 1. So what we're proposing is, what we're showing is a conforming road with a cul-de-sac, and that provides frontage, the building circle, lot area, for two conforming lots. One would hold his house, and then the other, at some later date, could potentially be developed, though we don't currently have plans. But as I know the board's discussed before, we're showing two lots, so everything that was done with the subdivision would be for a two-lot subdivision. At some point, if you wanted to sell it, you could. We're not by any means making any representations other than that is the ultimate goal. And really, that's it. We decided on this route because it makes things cleaner. Under 61B, which is the agricultural ordinance, we could have actually called the whole property agriculture and you're allowed to live on your agricultural use. But to make things cleaner, and also so you understand, that's rural and this is RA. I think I got that correct. So we're trying to keep the two lots in the different zones, tracking with, you know, one set of dimensions for each side. So these two lots completely conform to what is required in the RA zone. So we don't have to worry about split lots, we don't have to worry about variances, we don't have to worry about any of that. We got two conforming lots. Ultimately, if your board were in agreement, we would probably be asking for waivers to build this to a private road standard with the understanding that there'd be a, I guess we're calling it homeowners association, although I tend to still call it a mutual maintenance agreement. There'd be a covenant with the town to remain private in perpetuity. And that is mainly because, again, we're not really looking to build anything at this point. Ultimately, the driveway, I shouldn't say ultimately, currently the driveway starts here, kind of loops around, goes over to this house. We do understand that when you turn this into a private road, you have drainage concerns, you have fire access concerns, and we'll meet all those. So that is part and parcel of what we're proposing. And that's really it. So when you asked last time, what is going on with parcel A, that's your answer. We would come in front of you with a two-lot subdivision, and if your board saw fit to approve it, we would end up being able to separate it from lot one because the subdivision would provide adequate frontage, circle, and we'd have conforming lots. That's pretty much the concept, and we're here to get your input before we actually go forth and do. In all honesty, we'd probably file the site plan first and then come back after the site plan was done and do the subdivision.
Okay. Kyle, you have any comments?
Mr. Chair, I just got the plan this afternoon, took a quick look at it. All the basic components are there to display what Mr. Mackey described. The road slopes are reasonable, everything that's shown, needed for a preliminary is shown. I have no issues with it.
Okay. John?
The road slopes down from the road, is that right? I mean, the driveway slopes down from the road?
Yes.
Currently, does the back parcel touch West Street? Or is it an easement for the driveway? What's the current condition?
This lot actually has frontage where you see the road hitting. And if you look at the A&R at risk of jumping over, that is basically a big horseshoe. And currently the legal frontage
Is the, on the A&R, yeah. But there is actually a piece of
Yes.
their land that touches West Street on the other side.
There
as
is.
well. Okay, because looking at the locus map, I don't see anything other than the two front lots on either side meeting. I just didn't know if that was,
I can have Scott.
Yeah, the locus map, I think, uses the assessors
Yeah.
parcels, and those aren't quite that accurate. If you look at the one at the corner of the, the A&R plan, the assessors up here, you can see that it shows two connections.
okay. I thought there was something, but when I was looking at the preliminary plan, it's showing the two lots and it wasn't clear. Okay, so private road to that, yeah. No other questions?
Phil, does, you said he currently has a nursery, or he wants to have a nursery?
He wants to have, yes, he wants to have a nursery.
And where, you keep going like that, is it property he already owns?
Yes. So in the A&R plan, again, at the risk of jumbling the two together, he owns from over here all the way over to here. And the preliminary plan you have has a lot, the ends right here.
But he'll still be able to access it?
Yes, because one, you would end up with a new road here to access the house lots, and you have the existing access over here for the nursery.
Okay.
And currently, this is undeveloped. That's why we would still have to come, I believe, before you for site plan or some sort to do that.
Okay.
But that would be the plan, rather than just call the whole thing agricultural and have a mess.
Okay. That's all I have.
Phil? Yeah, I'm a little confused. So you said that the Lot 2 would be in, solely in the rural district?
All right.
RA. So I'm looking on the map here, right? Maybe I'm looking at Lot 2 as being a different Lot 2.
I apologize. I misspoke.
That's the rural, but
So
the-
I caused your confusion.
Okay, that's all right.
Sincerely apologize.
But the zoning line appears to cut through so that there's a portion of both Lot 2 and 3 that are in both zones. The property line doesn't appear to follow the actual zone.
Yeah, the property line and that zoning district line are not coincident with each other, they're skewed a little bit. The property line between lots 2 and 3 established to provide enough area and frontage and whatnot. It's not exactly splitting, although the vast majority of lot 2 is in the rural district and the vast majority of the remaining lot 3 is in the urban district. So functionally, this lot complies with all the rural requirements, more stringent, 40,000 square feet additional frontage. And then the RA line has more than substantial area frontage.
No, thank you. That was only because you said there was the line there.
I
so
did,
just
and I
wanted to understand.
apologize.
No, that's all right. I just want to.
I'm a little out of practice after my recent absence.
And could you just make sure, it's hard to actually read part of this. So the frontage for the new subdivision, yeah, where the new road is going to go in with the cul-de-sac. So there's a house lot 62. Is that part of lot 2 now?
No.
That's a separate, totally
That's a
separate parcel lot.
and they would have the benefit of frontage on the new road.
Yeah.
Because there is no strip of land between the two. But as far as I know, they would have probably no interest in maintaining a private road when they abut West Street, and I assume go in and out of that. But in the definitive plan, we could certainly discuss that with them.
So could you just show the line where it crosses then from, if you look at the bottom of lot 2, there's a diagonal line, left to right.
Yep.
It's the one that's 63.45 degrees, or 63 degrees, 45 minutes, I think that, if I'm reading that right. Oh, no, that's, I'm sorry, it'd be 79, that's not a compass reading. But it's 79.41, 63.45 feet, and 84.55 feet. And then there's the cul-de-sac, and there's a little space where that comes in, just at the circle. Yeah.
Do you mind if I come up so that I
Yeah,
can
no, that's right. It's just
point?
hard to see exactly where those. So we have here lot 2.
Yep.
And then it comes down here.
Mm-hmm.
And there's and it wasn't clear to me how far down this goes.
So right there.
Right, okay, so this is the lot line there,
Yes.
that curve.
Mhm.
Okay, it ends right there, okay.
Right. And then at
So then
this
they-
point, this lot line and his lot line are the same.
Okay,
So this owner would actually have frontage.
on this.
And in the definitive
And-
process, we would discuss if they actually want to use it, and be part of the homeowners association, or just stay off.
And there, the frontage for lot 2 then is this whole,
Correct.
this whole part
Yeah,
there?
it starts here, goes
Goes all
around
the way
the
from there
cul-de-sac
to
to that
there.
line.
Okay.
While you're here, I
Yeah.
have the same question. So this parcel touches West Street? I know it touches West Street down here.
Right.
But this?
This whole piece, I'm sorry, Phil.
That's right.
Lots 1 and 2, or 2 and 3 is shown on here.
Yeah.
Are currently all parcel A, if
Yeah.
you assign the plan.
Uh-huh.
And that comes all the way down to here.
It does?
It has, yes, it actually has frontage on West Street, and then curves back in and goes around that way.
Okay.
And
Do you have
that's
that
for the-
dimension?
That's the A and R.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, that's the A and R plan.
Right.
Yeah.
Does not currently conform, there's not sufficient frontage there to have a separate lot based on what exists right now.
Yeah,
Which is why I have to build the road in.
okay.
I have another question, and that is the the property for, the existing property on Lot 3, so that's staying, right? That house is staying.
Yes.
Yeah, and it shows on sheet 5, it shows existing driveway.
Correct.
So that's going to stay.
We would like it to, but once we file a definitive plan, if your board decides it needs to be improved or altered, we would, I mean, basically, from West Street to the end of the cul-de-sac would be under your jurisdiction because it is a road. So if you tell me I have to move it, or if the engineer suggests we change it, then we'll change it. But basically, from the edge of the cul-de-sac to the house is a real driveway, and if we can leave it where it is, I think that would be ideal. But again,
Because there's some wetlands there, obviously.
there's a lot of wetlands.
Yeah, so that would cause some challenges as far as,
Yes. And we're trying to stay away from them.
so in Lot 2, would you anticipate if you did a house, it would, it looks like the wetlands pretty well surround that property, so it would have to be in that part of the upland that's adjacent to the cul-de-sac.
Lot 2 is a challenge. We're
You're
showing
not
2
building a house
lots.
there now, so you're just
I
subdividing it.
don't know if it's ultimately going to be buildable, but
Okay.
again, in just terms of total disclosure, if we can get the appropriate relief from Conservation and Board of Health and everybody, ultimately, we might sell it. I don't want to stand in front of you and say, oh, no, we're never going to develop Lot 2 because it's wet.
But that's not
But
before us now.
it's a challenge, and so my answer is maybe. I don't really know if you can get a house there.
It does have a required contiguous upland though, in that pocket immediately off of the cul-de-sac. There's a contiguous upland pocket that exceeds 24,000 square feet, which is 60% of the underlying area required for that zone, so it does meet that standard. So from a zoning perspective, it meets all the requirements physically and dimensionally. Now, whether or not, as Phil said, Board of Health and Conservation are inclined to approve development for that, unsure. That's definitely not on the table at the moment. Definitely clearly focused on other aspects of the project.
Okay. Yeah.
And then also, just so you can understand, Phil, basically, town council years ago, and this board has directed me, follow the letter. A subdivision has to have 2 lots, and they have to have area and frontage. So we're showing 2 lots with area and frontage. Whether or not that second one's buildable, we'll see. We hope so, to be honest, but we don't know.
And then there'll be well water and septic for the,
Yes.
yeah, so there's probably no septic, no sewer on West Street at that
No.
point. Yeah. And then, so you're showing the sidewalk and at least you're showing the plan, the 20, I think the width of the road is 20, is it 26 feet? It is, right.
The proposed road is 26 feet.
Yes.
So, excuse my eyes on some of these
That's okay.
things. Yeah. And then what is the slope on the road?
3.7%.
3.7, okay.
Same as the existing driveway.
Okay.
So it's a steady, clean slope the whole way.
Okay.
Ideally, we wouldn't change really anything in terms of curb or just topography. It would just be, if we had to improve it, just expanded pavement, curbing, things like that. Again, we're not developing it, the second house. I think it would be a more prudent decision to maybe upgrade the drive a little bit, but not to a full roadway or single home that functions this way now.
Okay. That's all I have, thank you.
Okay. So just to clarify then, so the A&R would be the Lot 1, and then Parcel A, and Parcel A you're labeling not to be considered a buildable lot.
That is correct.
Okay. And how much frontage does Lot 1 have on West Street?
It's 7, see, it's 200.
So it's over the minimum?
Yes.
Okay. On West Street?
Yes.
On West Street.
okay. 207, okay. And then I know the engineer had mentioned this, so I'm looking at Lot 2 now. So if you put in a full road, you're telling me that the contiguous area is there. That small area is, what are you saying, 27,000?
27,250.
And that's not counting at all that corner piece up there?
If you add this area, the total is 62,393 square feet of lot width. But this contiguous area here is that 27,000.
Okay, and that's not including the area needed for the road?
No.
You
No,
didn't
that's-
include
That's
that?
strictly outside of the right of way, yeah.
Okay. Okay. And then again, so back at the area where the proposed road is for the subdivision, can I have the dimension that part has on West Street? You said there is frontage there, but what, is that the 106 feet?
Yeah, the existing's 106.
106. Okay. And to build the new road, you don't need any part of the adjacent property, the Noonan property,
No.
to build the full
Correct.
town road?
Yeah, if I had to suspect that, say, that the existing single parcel in and of itself was, they left an exact roadway corridor, so 46 feet wide, the return radii, the frontage to build the road, they were anticipating, I believe, a subdivision all the way through, but there's wetlands centers. So
I
this
thought I had
whole
that.
section right here, this sort of first 150-ish feet,
Uh-huh.
it's all existing, it's exactly how the property lines are now, and those conform to the dimensions, subdivision conform.
Okay. And have you been in contact with those residents about the proposed,
Yes.
anything you'd like to share with the board and the? Okay. Okay.
One of the issues is, not issues, but discussions has been, they're generally in support. I'm not going to stand here because
Mhm.
we'll have neighbors in 2 months that tell me I'm wrong.
Yeah.
That's fine, but our general inclination is, because Mike does live there and he is running his business, if the business completely goes over there, that actually pulls a lot of the larger vehicles that he uses just day in and day out, not running a business out of there, but it pulls them away from the houses and pulls them back up towards the train tracks.
Mhm.
So conceptually, at least at this point,
Mhm.
everyone seems to think that's better. But of course, the proof is in the pudding when we actually have a public hearing.
Okay. Okay, and then, when I added up the area for lot 1, 2, and 3, I didn't get the 15.4 acres. The difference would be the road, or?
Sorry, I'll have to do that math now myself. Even though the Did you include that area of the road too?
No, I did not.
So I think
So
that's probably the
that's the
balance.
difference?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll just say on the preliminary, I have concerns about Lot 2, like, being, able to be developed, that it would actually go through, but that's, outside of our board, but I'll just say that I have concerns about that. And also if you were wanting to keep the driveway to a new road, that, where that intersects is a little bit dicey, so, that would all have to be worked out in the
course.
definitive, but, I I think that would probably change a little bit.
And it may. Like I said, once we actually do the engineering and get your comments on a definitive plan, I'm sure the road itself won't be exactly where the driveway is. Our main point is we're trying to the extent possible minimizing new disturbance. But clearly, we have to meet your regulations, we gotta meet fire, and, you know, Board of Health and everybody else. So we know there's gonna be some
Okay.
adjustments.
Okay. And then lot one, with that frontage, you say 207, you say lot one fully meets zoning, frontage.
It is
Area.
it meets frontage and area. It doesn't have the 80% circle, but it never has had the 80% circle, and if this were to actually be approved, that doesn't change. So the nonconformance
Didn't
has
increase.
absolutely nothing to do with what's being proposed. All we're doing is effectively taking area of which we have far in excess of what's needed and removing it.
Okay. Okay. That's it then. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, a few questions, comments. Let's see, I know Donna McKenzie's been here a few times over my little career. You can tell the out-of-town engineers, because you actually put the setback lines. Our normal guys don't do that. They make me take the scale out and say, why are we a foot short here? So, if you come here enough, you'll be getting rid of those soon, I can see that, right? Okay. And but as far as the, what are the wetlands, you have no way to kick anyway on your wetlands, so that doesn't matter. Now, Phil, question for you, is when, if you go to develop this preliminary, do you have to split off into two ownerships, or will that affect it?
You don't have to.
You don't have to? Unless something changes in the future and you're gonna merge them or something, right? That's the only thing.
We could, and at least currently, Mike and his wife own the whole thing, and they're gonna continue to own the whole thing. We may, after site plan approval of the nursery, have the landscape business own that, and he own the house, but even then, he could still own lots 2 and 3 himself, and then if he ever wanted to sell, and I agree with you, Sarah, it may never happen because it's challenging, but if he ever did, then he could sell off lot 2. Or if he didn't want to live in the house, he could sell off lot 1 and build a new house, or what happens. But currently, it's all under one ownership, and it can stay that way as long as he so chooses. As his lawyer, I'm gonna tell him to separate it out as soon as it's legally possible, but that's a liability question, not a land ownership thing.
All right, and my only last comment related to this, or the next one, not necessarily the A&R, is I would do a little more research on whether you need to even do a site plan with us. Because all you gotta do is go back Rockwood versus the whole Granite Street in like 1995.
Okay.
Because that was deemed agricultural, and they're getting banged on it. I don't know if it was a site, I think it was a site plan too, but agriculture is exempt, correct?
Correct.
And I think they even get exempt from site plan, because that's the first one in our book, just like the schools, they don't need to do site plan. So some of them done just a matter of courtesy, but I would just double check that so that you don't run into what has happened in the past.
Absolutely.
I mean, what are we gonna do for site plan? Bunch
Quick
of
question.
flowers?
Good question, Mr. Chair. Yeah, so is that a problem, though, that part of the land on site on lot 2 is in general residence, or in residence?
No. No, if you deem your property agricultural, you can do whatever you want.
That actually trumps zoning boundaries. As long as it's more than 5 acres, and this is clearly more than 5 acres.
I guess my
And
question,
after all of this is done, lot 1 is still over 5 acres. We made sure that we didn't somehow paint ourselves.
what,
in
for
a corner.
agricultural?
Yes.
It's 2.
Okay,
They changed it about 6 or 7 years ago.
fair enough.
The Val did. So we don't get a lot of 2-acre
You don't.
agricultures. The other question I have is why wouldn't you just deem this all agricultural, do what you want, and have at it?
We've had a lot of those discussions, but we are probably going this way.
Okay, all right.
Mr. Chairman?
Yep.
I just have one other question, maybe for the board or for Carl. Is there any issue with approving a lot with an existing house, calling it not to be considered a buildable lot?
Well, that is what's currently there.
Correct.
I understand, but
I don't think so, because they can't separate out ownership. As long as it's still attached to Lot 1, which is a buildable lot, under our zoning, the whole thing is considered a single lot.
My understanding of the whole not buildable lot origins in the subdivision control law is that so if you do create a lot that doesn't conform, you basically put that note on there and allows you to endorse it, but it's a red flag to building officials. In this case, there's already a building on it.
right, so is that,
Approving the preliminary doesn't affect it because actually the preliminary is trying to bring it up to.
yeah, preliminary is a separate issue. I'm just saying for us to sign that A&R,
We went through that last time and we had a little differential, didn't we, Phil?
We do, and I still think
Yeah.
it's acceptable.
Well, I understand, so we've already approved one A&R on this a couple weeks ago, right?
Yes.
But we have the preliminary, so make a motion, and it doesn't matter whether we vote love you or hate you, it doesn't matter whether we vote all yes or all no or nothing. So I'll make a motion to give tentative approval for preliminary plan on 965 West Street.
Second.
Is there a second? Any further discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained? There you go, Phil.
Thank you.
All right. Now, you're gonna school me again, aren't you, on the A&R?
Again, literally, the only thing that changed is the ordinance became bylaw.
The what?
The typographic error where we identified shall not be an endorsement in accordance to zoning ordinance has
Yeah,
been
that
changed
one.
to bylaw.
Yeah.
Nothing else has changed on that plan. And
Did you pull it back? Yeah, you did.
I did, I
Yeah.
went through it, and
didn't vote
at
on
your guidance, I now have to ask with this new application if the board would waive the filing fee for this round, given that literally the only change is one word. But we did pay it, we do have it, so it's not, not a question of whether or not we're willing to do so.
All right. I never get any money back when I screw up. But it's not a lot either, is it? But I'll start. John, your feelings?
If it's just corrections, I'd say I agree with refunding.
Kate?
I agree. We were all ready to go forward with it, and that was the only hitch, so.
Phil?
Yeah, I agree too, although that question that Sarah raised is I think is an interesting question. That would be the only concern I would have.
Okay, Sarah?
yeah, I'm okay with the money
Okay,
refunding.
someone want to do a full motion? Okay, I'll make a
Agree
motion.
to,
Okay, go
make a
ahead.
motion to waive the second filing
So we
fee,
weren't doing that. Sorry.
Okay, do we have a
For the-
second?
the A&R.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, I abstain because kind of what I do is, how many of us get to go up and sit in front of 5 people and beg for money back? Doesn't happen. That's kind of what, and I've had enough of these, as you know, Phil, and some other ones. Oh, it's $15,000, but you're building a $20 million project. Don't cry to me. So, all right. But you got the money back before you even got the vote.
I appreciate it. More interested in the vote, to be totally honest with you.
How much you got?
Apparently $300.
We're gonna need that to make a vote, so we'll be back to even. So I'll make a motion to endorse an A&R.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Part of the A&R is providing access. I note some wetlands along the 46-foot access way,
What did I say?
or the,
Yeah, thank you.
whatever the actual width is there, 200 feet or 160. Is that going to be an issue? Do you have to go to Concom for that, as far as creating?
Not
He's
as
going
things
to-
stand right now, but when we do go, even if we don't have to come back for site plan, because I'm gonna do the research, for the nursery, the agricultural use, we are gonna have to go to conservation to basically bridge the wetlands, and so that will be required.
Okay, so you're factoring access into?
Yes. Mhm.
Getting to the lot, okay.
Did I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any further discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained?
Thank you very much.
And everybody sign it, and then Phil takes it with him. Oh, your lines confuse me. You put too many on there.
Be careful, be careful.
Oh.
Keep that thing.
Yeah.
Oh, I did too. I had forgotten to
Phil?
Jeff, do you have any paperwork?
About that, right?
Great. Not right away. We gotta open the hearing first. Well, it's open, we gotta.
Phil, you wanna close this one out first, like take
Yes,
his plan?
That'd be great.
Feeling better? You can have my job.
It's bad.
Especially if it's coming from him.
That's when you gotta worry. Oh, you look great.
I know you're lying. So 3 copies?
This is for Jeff. Jeff, do you want the big plans out on this?
Sure.
Next one.
Are they both the same, or
Yeah. They're all the same. Sometimes they're easier.
there's some biggies? Oh, no, you can open them if you want.
Can we share?
You guys can share that.
You wanna
I
share?
got my small
Okay,
ones.
got some small ones.
Would you rather not? It's up to you.
No, it's okay.
I would agree with that. I like these better.
Jack likes the small ones better too. Would you rather? I can read them.
No, it's easy to see.
It's only the trouble in my old eyes.
All right. Okay,
Nothing else.
with the hour being after 7:30, we have a public hearing at 7:30 main meeting room on a site plan application from Paragon Investments LLC, 8 Hancock Court, Walpole, Mass. Case 21-4, it's a property located 130 West Street and 25 Spring Street, Walpole, shown as Assessors Map 33, parcels 399 and 398 in the zoning district CBD. The applicant is seeking site plan review under section 13 of the zoning bylaws to allow for the demolition of existing buildings constructed of mixed-use condominium complex with coupled with driveways, parking spaces, stormwater management, landscape, and other appurtenances, as shown on a plan prepared by Crossman Engineering. So with that being said, it is open. We have a big room tonight, so everybody understands the way the hearing will go. The applicant and their team will give us an overview of what they got. When they're done, I'll read the comments that I've had from any of the boards, committees, or departments in the town, anyone else that's in here. And then I'll open up to board members, and at the end of the night, everyone will get a chance to speak who wants to. So I ask you, everybody get a chance, just hold your questions to the end, because you do that, you might have questions answered during this whole process. And I know it's a little bit early for normal times, but I'm gonna keep this to an hour, so we're all
It's fine.
sitting here. So at approximately, with 10 minutes to go, so say at about 5 of 9, we'll cut it unless we're already done, and we'll go right to the residents, so everybody understands. So that being said, I'll turn it over to you, Phil.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Phil Mackey, Mackey and Mackey, 1256 Washington Street, Norwood, Massachusetts. As counsel for and on behalf of the applicant, with me is Ryan and Kristen Lenart, the principals of Paragon Investments, Doug and Nino, the architect, and Steve Cabral, the engineer. And I would be remiss not to introduce Michael Wigney, who is the newest associate with the firm, so she's here as well. Basically, what we have is a by right use. So Sarah, this should bring up bells, because you actually did say the last time I think I was here, you can have by right in the CBD, and you can. And I was actually a little surprised that it actually works functionally, but in this particular case, we believe it does. So I, of course, killed some trees, so I can walk you through the site plan. And while I'm passing these out, I would note, we have had some questions. I'm sorry about that, John. Apparently, I'm just throwing
Thank you.
signs all over the way today.
Touch it, it's fine. It's fine, Phil.
Thank you.
There you go. So, we actually filed this last fiscal year, and our butters list was from last fiscal year because you get what you get, but I did confirm with Dennis Fliss this morning that the butters list, based on the 2 parcels we provided him, has not changed. I'm pretty much going to leave it at that. It's our obligation to provide the right parcels. Certainly if we hadn't, and it has happened before, you have to get a new list and renotice. But we checked again with the town, and if there's something wrong with the GIS, that is beyond our control. And respectfully, we're going to continue to move forward unless, for some unknown reason or other reason, town council or otherwise tells us we have to stop. But we understand where we are. And just for your records, I got a new butters list dated today, certified by Dennis.
Thank you.
And it is the exact same people that Kate sent notice to. So with that, we have, if we get to the architecturals, I will hand these out. If not, you'll get them next time around. But to focus at least on getting the legal piece out of the way first. Everybody in town pretty much knows this is the old electrical workers building. I still refer to it that way and forget that Dry X has probably been there for 8 years, and Ryan and Kristen remind me about that all the time. But at any rate, do we have an existing conditions plan? Let's see that. I will just keep talking while they find that. You have? Yeah, that'll be fine. So, just to orient you to what exists there today, you've got the old electrical workers union, you've got a hard stand building, you got a Quonset hut. They also have some outdoor storage of materials. It's basically, as far as Walpole goes, is about as industrial site as you currently get. However, it is the last parcel in the CBD. So, while everything there is either pre-existing or allowed, not really necessarily what I believe the town envisioned our central business district to be looking like, as far as businesses and residences and what have you. Along those lines, we haven't filed it yet, but Dry X, again, the existing tenant of what we call the electrical union building, will be filing a site plan as they procured a site out on Route 1 to move their business to, which then opens this up for the development that we're proposing in front of you. The 2 parcels, as I mentioned, currently exist. They have about 1.87 acres of land. And currently, the business is completely used by Dry X. It's got 18 employees, 4 dump trucks, 3 pickup trucks that come and go multiple times a day. It has several 18-wheelers dropping off supplies and materials throughout the week, and that's what's going on there. So while it may not necessarily be what we want in the CBD, it is an ongoing commercial use. Our proposed construction is basically you can kind of see it up here, a condominium complex with an outer ring and a couple of buildings in the middle. The idea is that we're going to ultimately, or what's going to look like, have 24 units. And we're trying to work with the building department and the planning department to figure out if it's 24 or 48 units. But basically the concept is first floor has to be commercial. That's what our zoning requires, and we're not asking for any variance or any waiver of that. And this is why we're going back and forth on how best to make sure that stays that way. The idea being that a person or couple or partners or what have you buy into the complex, and you're buying a slice. You're buying a place to have your business and 2 floors to live above it. That could be anything from an attorney who doesn't have a very large practice, to a consultant, to a beauty shop. I hesitate to put that one out there for the center, but nonetheless, or simply someone who no longer has to go into Boston every day and is working from home 3 or 4 days a week, or potentially all the time, with infrequent trips. And quite honestly, 2 years ago, this probably would be an interesting concept, but there wasn't a huge demand. We all know the world changed, and not everyone's going back to work. And we actually believe this fills a niche of somebody who wants to work at home, but working at the dining room table for whatever reason doesn't work. And I think there are a lot of people in that particular situation. So we're proposing, again, for the purposes of our discussion, 24 units, but whether it's actually separated into 24 commercial and 24 residential, we'll figure that out. But it's 24 ownerships. It's not 48 different tenants. And I do want to emphasize that. You're going to be required to buy the whole slice, not upstairs or downstairs. And that is what the condominium documents will say. Coupled with that, we show 66 parking spaces. As it is in the CBD zone, we are not actually required to provide any commercial spots. But from a practical standpoint, that doesn't really work here because we're not really within walking distance, or not within easy walking distance of the big lots downtown. There are some lots across the bridge, but that's too far away, we thought, to actually, with a straight face, say, hey, that's where people are going to park. So the 24 units require 48 spots. We're providing 66. Based on the mix of uses that we are anticipating here, we believe that will be adequate to ensure that the customers of these home businesses, if there are any, can park and circulate within the site. We did go through developmental plan review. Initially, we had proposed there only be one access and exit out onto West Street. The fire department was adamant that they wanted a second access. I believe a few others were, but Paul was definitely the leader of that charge. And so we did redesign the project after that meeting to include the second access out onto Spring Street. I would note that given the density calculations for the Central Business District, we're allowed 3.5 times the ground floor area for residential use. We are only proposing two times that, so in effect, where 33 units could potentially be put here, given the 66 parking spots, we're not looking to do that. We're not trying to overburden the site, and we're trying to provide basically a small micro neighborhood, if you will, to afford people the opportunity, again, to work at home or have small businesses that don't require a lot of traffic. And again, we committed to work with the community development officer, because there are some uses that we don't want to see here. The ones that come to mind, gym, I can't stop daycare because of the Massachusetts laws, but we're certainly not encouraging it. Restaurants, we're not looking at high volume traffic. Again, the focus is on really people who want to work from home, or the small professional that has 1 or 2 clients at a time, possibly all day. So to go through the site plan criteria, section 13.9, the first one talks about height, mass, setbacks, and traditional building materials. Again, with me is Doug and Nino, who can go in at length, but given that we're trying to keep this to an hour, I'm going to keep it at the high level, and certainly if you have specific questions, and I know we're coming back, we'll be happy to discuss them. But again, the whole idea of the project is it's a townhouse unit looking project. There's not going to be like a commercial pedestal. It's going to look like townhouses, tastefully done. The access to all of the units is from inside of the site, so people will not be queuing on either Spring or West Street. We believe that the materials and the proposals that Doug has come up with as the architect will actually blend in much nicer with the area than many of the projects that have been built over the last couple of years. And again, these are 3-story houses, effectively. It's not a 5- or 6-story apartment building. And so we believe we satisfy that site condition. Talks about the satisfying development standards and guidelines of the bylaw, and we will get to those in detail in a moment. The third criteria is talking about landscaping and buffering. And we believe the landscaping plan itself fully complies with everything that is required. The one discussion item that I'll bring up tonight and will be, I imagine, a discussion that needs to take at least another meeting and some more information. We are currently showing work in the buffer area. The buffer area requires a 26-foot buffer. I hate to use the word twice in one sentence, from the zoning district line to the edge of the buffer. We are not constructing anything within that buffer, but we do show patios, we do show grass. Certainly, if we have to, we can remove them and fully comply. I would submit, and certainly this is up for discussion with the appropriate parties, the first of which is yours. On one side, there is a single-family residence that's effectively on a hill, but doesn't really, there's a section of Swan Pond that comes out to West Street. I don't know how that lot got created, but so be it, that's the way it is. And I know we've talked, or Brian and Kristen have talked with the owner, and I don't know if she's here, so I'm not gonna speak for her, but we are cognizant that simply following the guidelines does nothing to actually buffer our house because of the elevation, and are certainly willing to work with off-site improvements if that was more effective and something that they were interested in. If it's not, then certainly I'm not going to even try and force someone to do something on their land that they don't want to. And then we also show, again, some amenities between the, I don't know which we're really calling the rear, but if you call West Street the front, then you have the main entrance to Swan Pond in the back. And effectively, there is a road with a cul-de-sac, which is presumably, and I'm kind of guessing, so if I'm incorrect or have to do more homework, happy to do so, but it looks like that was created to actually provide frontage. Sounds like a discussion I had very recently, about 5 minutes ago, and it makes total sense. But what there is what was at one point a landscape berm between that roadway edge and our lot. It's somewhat in disrepair. We would be happy to work with them to have some sort of combined thing or put more buffering or denser vegetation or something on our side. But respectfully, I would ask as we have these discussions, at least along that border of this project, there are no homes, there's a street. So by the letter of the law, we would have to pull our landscaping back a few feet. We can do that and are prepared to if necessary, but we think the project is better for everyone as a whole as designed. And again, I know we're not going to make that determination tonight. I'm putting it on the table as a discussion item to have with your board and see where we want to go with that, what's the most appropriate course of action for everyone involved. As far as being consistent with the master plan and open space plan, we couldn't find anything in either of them that identifies this site other than as part of the central business district, which they call for high-density housing mixed with retail, which is effectively what we're trying to provide. So I really don't think either apply per se. It's really just in line with the zoning bylaw. But certainly we don't counter any design imperatives in either of those documents. As far as important existing site features, and natural or man-made, there are none. This is an existing site. It's very heavily disturbed. If you walk through there, wear your boots to try and get around the outsides of the buildings. And that's kind of where we'll leave that one. As far as drainage, I will certainly let Steve Cabral discuss that at length, but I am confident the drainage reports that we have provided will meet the standards. I also know that Carl's given us about 4 pages of comments, which we have to work through with him. So rather than berating or belaboring what's existing right now, I would suggest that for our next meeting, after we have a chance to sit down and go over the comments and submit revised plans, we talked about it at that point. But I don't believe there's anything in his comments that we think is a problem with resolving. As far as vehicular and pedestrian movement within the site, again, we have said, or as I have said, the idea being is you enter the site through one of the 2 entrances, you park your car, you walk to wherever you're going, and you stay inside of the site. As far as the access to the train station, which we still believe is a good thing, that was basically through at the corner of Spring Street and West Street. And if you look at the plans we provided, there's a break in the buildings, and we're somewhat open to it can remain part of the condominium complex. We've flown out the idea, or been asked to consider the idea of a pocket park for the town. We're pretty much amenable to anything, but the idea being is you come out of the buildings, you go through the site, you go down the steps, because there is an elevation differential there if you're familiar with the site, and then you get on the crosswalk and use the existing sidewalks to get to the train, or the rest of the downtown for that matter. But we're purposely not channeling residents or visitors from this along the outside of the buildings to access either downtown or the train station. And we think, as designed currently, that we provide a safe and convenient manner to get between the varying units inside of the condominium. The next piece is H, which talks about the adequacy of parking and loading spaces. And again, for our 24 residential units, we are required to have 48 spaces. We are not asking for any reduction in that number whatsoever. Again, it's a little surprising, but this is a project that I don't have to go to the zoning board for any dimensional or other relief. So that does give us an additional 22 spaces. We'd like to keep all 22. Again, I've read some of the comments. If things have to be adjusted, we have room. And then we'll see where we go through there. As far as the dimensional regulations under 13.9A9, again, we do not believe there are any natural features on this site that require preservation. We recognize that literally on the other side of the property is the watershed protection district, but because of the way the groundwater flows and the actual soil conditions, this site is not in that, so we don't have to deal with that. This is one of the few projects I've had that actually will still have 2 areas of slope are greater than 15%. One being that area that I talked to you about earlier, at the corner of Spring and West. When you look at the grade there, we're going to have some steps and probably a small retaining wall to get from the level of the parking lot down to the street. And then likewise along West Street, if you go up by the entrance, the topography of the neighboring lots goes up to such a degree that we can't quite get that to under 15%. But we do think that our plan for stabilization and control is more than adequate. And again, when I'm not looking at the clock to keep time, happy to go over that in depth, both with Carl ahead of time and your board, completely at your convenience. As far as the lighting, we believe the lighting plan shows that, at least as we are proposing it, you're not getting any outside lighting because, again, all of the circulation and vehicular traffic is internal. It will be up to this board if you want any exterior lighting. We've had some projects where it was requested, but we certainly can comply with all of the lighting regulations as they stand. And we believe that the site is designed, takes all of that into consideration. As far as driveways go, again, there are actually 2 driveways there. The new driveways are proposed in approximately the same locations, but not quite. And clearly, we will work with Carl and confirm with the police department that they meet all of the site distance and other AAS HTO requirements. As far as illumination for parking lots and a prohibition of freestanding light poles over 15 feet, we meet that throughout the entire site. And as far as areas being designed with roadways and parking lot designed for the town of Walpole, we submit that they are, in fact, designed appropriately. As far as utilities being underground, we agree, and they will be, all of the utilities will be put underground. And then finally, there's a question of surface water runoff from structures and impervious surfaces. And again, we submit that our stormwater report speaks for itself, but are happy to discuss this at further length at your convenience. Steve or Doug, you want to say anything briefly? We've got a few minutes left.
Yes, with the time, I can be very brief. I'm Steve Cabral. I'm an engineer with Crossman Engineering of North Attleboro. And I hate to admit it, but typically I go through the full plan set one sheet at a time and discuss everything in detail. But I understand that's not the preference for tonight. So I'll be very quick. Okay. Yeah, what I have is one of the plans that's in the actual plan set. And on the left side, it's an aerial photo of the existing conditions, and on the right, it's an aerial photo with the proposed parking and building layout superimposed. And if any board member does want me to get into more detail, I can pull the actual plans out and get into very detailed discussion for you. One of the great things I liked about this site is that it's one of the few sites that I've worked on in the past 40 years where there's actually no wetlands and no flood zones. The other benefit is we performed a series of exploratory soil tests throughout the site, and this is probably the best soil that we've also have run into. Good gravelly soil, and the water table is very deep. So that gives us plenty of opportunities to mitigate stormwater runoff. And we are going to invite Carl to witness the soil. We didn't invite him the first time because we like to do exploratory work to find out what we're running into so that we could get a design underway. In regards to drainage, because the soils were so good, we have a series of underground infiltration chambers beneath the parking lot. And our goal was to exceed any of the town and the state stormwater manual standards. And when I say that, that includes the recharge standard, the water quality, as well as the peak flow requirements. We analyzed all rainfall events from as small as a 1-inch storm event up to the 100-year storm, which is approximately 9 inches. And just to give you a summary, up to the 2-year storm event, which is a 3.26-inch storm, we're actually decreasing the surface runoff that leaves the site by approximately 98%. Currently, Yeah, no, as you can see, there's 2 buildings, about 8,500 square feet, and a considerable area for parking. Currently, there's no on-site stormwater mitigation. Essentially, what lands on the pavement discharges into the town system. We're going to be collecting any runoff from our paved parking areas as well as rooftop, infiltrating them. And for the 1-inch storm, there'll be nothing leaving the site from the parking lot or the buildings. 2-year, we're reducing it by 98%. And if we go all the way up to the 100-year storm event, which is a 9-inch event, we're decreasing the peak flow, and we also looked at the total volume, and we're reducing the volume by 49%. So this project definitely has a significant benefit in regards to stormwater runoff in the town system. Our traffic engineer also took a look at the trip generation, because we noticed in the town regulations, it states that if the traffic volume increases above a certain threshold, you're required to do a traffic impact study. So when our traffic engineer first looked at the project, she utilized the category entitled mid-rise residential with first floor commercial use, which is exactly what we're proposing here. And that's a development essentially in a downtown area. It's not meant to have a high traffic flow. When she went through the analysis using the ITE, the Institute of Transportation Engineer data, she found that during the morning, the AM peak hour, there would only be a total of 8 vehicles generated from the site. That's including the incoming and outgoing. During the PM peak, there would only be 9. Now, even our traffic engineer was surprised that the numbers were that low, but that's using actual ITE data. Knowing that those numbers were low, she wanted to present to the town a worst-case scenario. So she did a second trip generation analysis. And what she did is she assumed that there were going to be 24 condominiums on the property, and all of the first floor commercial use she considered to be an independent business, independent commercial use. And again, that's a worst-case scenario because an independent office use would have employees coming in, customers coming in, and employees leaving. When she went through that analysis and compared it to the existing traffic from the existing businesses, we found that in that worst-case scenario, there would be an increase in the morning of 31 vehicles. That would be 23 entering and 9 exiting. And during the PM peak, there would be, again, a total of 32 vehicles, 10 entering and 22 exiting. So even in the worst case, we found that the trip generation would be minor for this development. And that does coincide with the intended use. It's not intended to be an office park by any means. It's intended for people that live and work in the same area, or they utilize the trains. We also took a look at the available site distance at all of the driveways and at the intersection of Spring and West. We noticed that in the town regulations, they state that for a speed limit of 30, the town requires 200 feet of site distance at the driveways and intersections. And on our plan sheet C6, it does depict the sight lines that we measured, and we do meet the 200 feet at all of those points. We do recognize that the landscape design followed the traffic study, so we are going to work with our landscape architect and make sure shrubs, trees, and any retaining walls are outside of the sight line. In regards to parking, as Phil mentioned, we certainly exceed what's required. In regards to the parking, we have 30 garage spaces, we have 24 driveway spaces, and then we have 12 stripe spaces along the driveways for a total of approximately 66. Now, I do admit that the garage and driveway parking is in a tandem style, so the homeowners certainly will have to coordinate, incoming and outgoing. In regards to the overall layout, as Phil mentioned, when we originally designed the project, we only had one access on West Street. We did not have the access from Spring. But based on input from Carl and the fire department, we did add the access from Spring. but the project is designed to have a one-way movement throughout the facility, and we have some parallel parking along that one-way loop. We also submitted an independent plan that showed that there was adequate turning radius for the town's fire truck apparatus, and what we provided was the options with the fire truck entering west or spring, and even with the one-way loop, there was adequate space for the turning. Basically, we have a minimum width of the aisles of 20 feet, which is basically your standard fire lane, and then we would have the parallel parking. We also have a landscape plan, and our landscape architect did give attention to the abutting properties. You'll see that along the southern development, she has certainly a row of green giant arborvitaes, and on the west side, she has a row of white pines, and throughout the streets and the interior, she has a mix of street trees as well as shrubs. And as I mentioned, we're going to take a close look at those and make sure that they don't affect the sight line. And we also provided a lighting plan, which shows ornamental lighting that meets the town standards. And it was designed so that there'd be no spread onto the adjacent properties. Although when I looked at the lighting plan quickly, just a minute ago to refresh myself, I noticed that we do have an outdoor sitting area, and we have one light pole. And that light pole has a slight foot candle spread that spreads towards the adjacent cul-de-sac. But we could certainly lower the height of that pole to make sure that there's no spread on, beyond the property line. That's a very quick overview. So I think it's best to.
More trees.
Last but not least, architecture. We've tried to, my name's Doug Anino from Anino Associates. We're in North Attleboro, Massachusetts. And what we've tried to do here is create a community.
Thank you.
Sorry about that, Phil. Trying not to, I can make it through, but I'm not gonna sign.
It's a community of both residential and commercial uses in a small area. So the idea was to create a streetscape, a scale that's pedestrian oriented, and really some vitality and excitement. So it's pretty much traditional New England architecture. It's clapboards, board and batten siding, asphalt shingles, some standing seam metal roofs, chimneys, et cetera. It's the vocabulary that we have here in New England, and we tried to combine it in order to break down the scale and to make it an interesting type development. It's nice to have a sense of community. It's, as Phil mentioned, we're on the outskirts of the central business district, so we're slowly transitioning to more residential uses. So this was an attempt to bridge that gap. So we go from the higher density and the different type buildings downtown into the more residential character as we come out into the outskirts of the downtown. So as you can see, this is a shot of the entry off West Street, so the building on the corner. You can get a feel for the character of the development with extensive use of trim, shrubbery, vegetation, pergolas, everything and anything to add interest and make this a cohesive type environment for the people that live there. And also pleasant to look at and fit in with your community, Walpole, which has some very beautiful architecture. So we're trying to emulate that, but not be the same as that. Just done a couple shots looking at different parts of the development. This is looking down one of the streets inside the development. So it gives you an idea of the scale and character as you're walking down the street. The way the roof scape is broken down, the way that the windows are articulated on the facade. So these all add to the character and interest inside the development. So that was one street looking down. This is another street looking the other way, the central building in the middle. Some rooftops, pergola, garden area, relaxing areas for the residents above some of the garages. So the garages are always outside of the residential or the commercial building on the first floor. They're only one story, and we had the opportunity to add greenscape on the second floor on the roof level so that residents could enjoy that. And it also adds to the way the development looks, the detailing of the development itself. That's about it. That was a quick synopsis of the architecture and what we tried to accomplish in this development. Really scale, interest, and the sense of community inside of it.
All right, we got a few minutes left, so.
No, whoa.
Yes.
They speak at 5:00. What, do we shut off?
You told me that I had until 5:00.
No, I said I'll open it up to them at 5:00. Okay, so.
Fair enough.
We wanna, so everybody gets a shot, all right?
Got up,
All right, did someone else
my
have something to
clients are
say?
actually relieved. That's fine.
Oh, the client? You all set? Okay.
We'll be back. You'll hear from them.
We'll be back, okay. All right. I got a bunch of comments here, supposed to go to most of the boards and stuff. Kyle has his comments, I'll let him read his at the end. From Patrick Duchesne, Community Development and Economic Development, and he has the following comments. He says there's 66 spaces provided, only 48 are required. He says there are no handicap spaces shown on the site plan, and this is public accessible mixed use, so you're gonna need them. Okay, while I'm on that, you're gonna have to do something about your entrance coming at the corner of West and Spring Street, because you can't have stairs, you need a handicap.
We'll
You
make sure it
you know what I'm
complies.
talking about?
Yep.
To that little round area, so. Under section 8.9, zoning bylaw provides for parking relief for non-residential uses within a CBD in East Walpole. However, where the property owners choose to provide on-site parking for non-residential use, the standards shall apply in dimensions per section 8 of the zoning bylaws. All right. Site plan layout provides mixed garage spaces, striped spaces. Spaces shown on the plan are 90-degree angle and shown 18 depth. This is inconsistent with table 8.8A1, which all says all 90 degrees should be 18.5 feet. Okay?
Yep.
Aisle dimensions for the site is shown at 20 feet within the development, 22 egressing on the spring and 24 egressing on the west. A 20-foot aisle is not a dimension expressed within table 8 for 90 degree or any identified width or depth. I recommend increasing the aisle width to be consistent with the zoning bylaws.
Take a look at it.
Okay, landscaping gives you an A, except that you need a place for snow storage.
Okay.
Line of sight, placement of tree should be taken consideration on West and Spring. Buffer zones, the site is within the CBD and abuts general residence, and you have to have a minimum of 26 buffer. I think you've demonstrated or said you have that, correct?
We can. We're going to ask you for a waiver as part of this process, which your board is authorized to do by the book.
Well, on a previous one, you can look at it, is up the street on Main Street, I think they say you can use your setback as part of your buffer, from my understanding.
Yes.
So, okay. The applicant providing a lounge area with pavilion structure that is within 26-foot buffer. Suggest the applicant state the purpose of the lounge area.
I would say
Lounge.
by its nature it does, but so
It's,
be it.
I guess. Design standards, this is within the CBD, and guidelines of detail was in section 1312 are encouraged. I encourage the applicant to readdress the pedestrian pathways within the site as it relates to providing parking area and travel lane. A compact layout such as this should provide to the greatest extent practical means for pedestrian to access any building within the parking area without needing to cross the parking area. While there are sidewalks proposed, then the development appears that the pedestrians still need to walk around marked spaces in order to access the buildings. The front setbacks within the central business district are 0 with a maximum 25. The site appears to take its setback from Spring Street as its front setback. Is that where you're taking it from?
Steve? Apparently. So yes.
Okay, but okay, if you take it from Spring Street, then, all right. You guys wanna do the 26-foot down? That's your side yard, right?
Right.
Which is different than the,
We'll have to take a look at it.
okay, take a look at it, okay.
Again, Mr. Chairman,
All right,
I know
he's-
the comments are here, but I also know your board despises when people come in with new plans, so we understand there's a lot of work we gotta do.
No, we like them. We like when they come, we don't get to see them. Any additional signage should be consistent with section 7, and signage be identified what residential parking was, non-residential parking. Seeing the project is mixed use with business occupying the ground floor, and ask the applicant, is he proposing any sort of sign, directory signage?
We are not.
And within the site being the central business district, there should be an emphasis on pedestrian accessibility and bike storage within there. And once again, he mentioned snow storage. Okay? Next up is sewer and water. Sewer and water commissioners voted at their most recent meeting 4-0 and have no comments regarding, wow, that's good. Because they get, what, about 20 grand a unit for hookup?
Probably.
Yeah. From conservation, and they want us to ensure that you're gonna file land disturbance permit for operation over 40,000. The stormwater management plan shall incorporate the following whenever best possible: vegetated swales, vegetated filter strips, water efficient irrigation system, pervious paving, retention basins, bioretention basins, building oriented towards the sun for energy, blended into the natural features, preserve all natural features of the site and include non-invasive plant species, natural landscape species, and landscapers that retain water and appropriate to soil and microclimates. So that is from our conservation, actually Landis Hershey, the conservation agent. From the Board of Appeals, and the zoning board has no comments at this time. From Board of Health. Board of Health, it's its August 10th meeting, voted unanimously that the board does not have any concerns at the time. And the board noted that the plan should have adequate lighting and bike racks. So,
Got it.
you going back?
To bike racks?
No, you going back together? They say they have no, they haven't said yes.
They don't have to in site plan.
They don't? Okay. And
It's a
let's see.
requirement of subdivision control law.
And I have an email dated August 11th from Mary Ellen House, 28 Teal. And are you here tonight, Mary Ellen? All right, you want to speak to this, or you want me to read it? No, when you get a chance at the end. I can either do it now, or you can speak to it at the end.
What do you want me to do?
You want to wait for the, you can wait for the comments. I don't want to say something or steal your thunder or whatever you want. You can, it's better if you do it since you're here. I always let people encourage them while they're here. Okay, that's the comments I have read. Now I have, Kyle has a bunch of his.
Mr. Chairman, we did provide a review memorandum dated August 6th. As Mr. Mackey's already mentioned, it's about 4 pages. As for any review, first of all, Crossman Engineering did a good job on the submission. It was an easy to use and thorough. We reviewed everything in the submittal package, including the traffic memorandum. At 60 comments and 4 pages, I'm certainly not going to go through all of them, but as in any review, we have edits with notes and construction details. We always have something to say about water and sewer connections. Some of the major things we did look at on the site, you know, of course, the drainage. Mr. Cabral did an excellent summary on that. They are reduces development, reduces the volume by about half. We have concerns about when it does discharge, how it discharges. Currently, it shows an overflow to the street through catch basins. And we've discussed this and will continue to discuss it, whether it's better for it to be connected to the drainage system, and the street drainage system. The major concern is the flooding that can occur underneath the West Street Bridge. We've also made some comments about the sidewalk, or lack of sidewalks on the, within Spring Street and West Street, and asked them to remove their proposed mid-block crossing on West Street and provide sidewalks along West and on Spring, and utilize the existing crosswalks, which are stop sign controlled at the at least the Spring Street is stop sign controlled at the intersection of Spring, and also use the existing crosswalk along West. That there are some issues involved with that, but that was the drainage and really the circulation of the pedestrians within the public way are some of the major comments we had within our memorandum. If there are any questions by the board, I'd be glad to go over our comments.
Okay. All right, so that takes care of it. Sarah, I'll start with you.
Okay. So, in general, I will say that it's, you know, an attractive design, has some nice features. So the Central Business District is one of 5 commercial districts in Walpole. And its purpose, according to our bylaw, Section 4, is to provide for a center of business activity accessible to pedestrian travel, to provide a center for municipal and cultural activities, and to act as a landmark and symbol to the town. So, as was mentioned, mixed use, commercial and residential is allowed by right in Central Business District. And this is allowed where the ground floor area is dedicated to commercial use. So, just wanted to confirm, this is what you're proposing here?
Exactly, yes.
Okay. And you mentioned some of the businesses that you envision in these units. Would you like to add to that? What I wrote down
At
was,
this point, no, because I haven't finished going through the table yet. We're happy to have that discussion. In fact, I've committed to sitting down with Pat to go over what's allowed in the CBD and figure out from the town's perspective what marries up with our vision, and I anticipate that we will come to an agreement, and I'll present that to the board.
okay. So what I see on the plans is an average of around 850 square feet of each kind of business unit. Okay, so what you mentioned was attorney, consultant, beauty shop, something like that. So if you go into our use table and look at allowable uses, a lot of these uses are either allowed by right within residential districts or allowed with a special permit.
Yes.
Correct, okay. So what I'm really asking is for the applicants to demonstrate that the first floor of all these buildings will be commercial, like true commercial, and that it will be restricted to commercial in the future. To me, this project has an appearance of a multifamily development. And multifamily is not allowed in the Central Business District. So, you know, this to me looks like a multifamily with some light businesses, but as its primary use is a residential. So I have a lot of concerns that this project should even be here for site plan.
Respectfully, we have an opinion from the building inspector. If I may continue, we're not here asking permission for the use. You can deny us, and we'd go to the zoning board and appeal, but we have an opinion from the building inspector that's allowed by right. We're only here for site plan. I agree with you that there needs to be a mechanism to make sure that the first floor is commercial. I have started talking with Mike, and one of the things that we're thinking about, and he's trying to figure out before he signs up to to enforce anything, because he wants it clear and understandable and recognizable. But there's an annual requirement for restaurants and public places of gathering, which doesn't really fit what we're proposing, but we are willing to stipulate as a condition of approval that the commercial space be inspected once a year by the building department and the fire department in accordance with, I'm not going to try and quote the chapter because I know I'll get it wrong. And that is, he has already said in other forums that his department doesn't go looking for things, but if they're conducting an inspection and it's not commercial, he has to do something. That's just one of the things we're thinking about. And again, this is our first meeting with you, so we know we've got things to do. But while I, again, have our opinion that this is an allowed by right use, I completely agree with you that we need to take care, and we're going to draft the condominium documents this way. We're going to work with the building, the inspection department, that side of it. We'll talk with the fire department, and to the extent legally possible, we're going to make sure that the first floor is commercial, because that is what the CBD requires.
Yeah, and I'm particularly interested in commercial that's not allowed by right in a residential district.
We're going to look at the CBD uses.
Okay,
And that's, I can't say that we're going to need anything, we can't have a use variance. So we're going to go through again, committed to sit down with Pat. We're going to go through the CBD use table, and that's what we're going to target. And honestly, we're probably going to focus it more on what's not allowed than versus what is, because we want, 5 years from now, I guarantee there's going to be a business out there that no one in this room has thought about, and I don't want to prevent them from coming. But we know there are some uses that we absolutely don't want here because they have too much traffic. They wouldn't be appropriate. They'd cause a problem for the neighbors. They cause a problem for this development. So we'll probably go that route, but we will sit down and we're going through the CBD use table, not anywhere else, and say this is what's allowed by either right or special permit, and how do we get those businesses into these offices
right,
or spaces, whatever they turn out to be.
right. And it's, I mean, it's going to be a challenge at like 850 square feet
We
of
understand
business.
that. And
Okay.
you've got the building next to Jimmy's that's been vacant for 15 years on the first floor because he's not allowed to have residential there. It doesn't do us any good to propose and build something that isn't going to sell. So the Lennarts, and at a future meeting, I'm sure they'll discuss it a little bit more, are only interested in making something that's viable. Because if we can't sell them, or they sit vacant, and all of a sudden they're worth half of what we thought, it's a risk. It's free market here, but it's certainly something we're trying to plan around
Yeah.
and prevent.
Okay. I just want to go on record that, I don't want to support a project that I see in violation of our bylaws.
Totally understandable.
Okay. So in addition to the purpose of development within the central business district, which I talked about, is we have decided as a town in our bylaw that we want our CBD to be a walkable commercial center. And Walpole is also a complete streets community, and as such requires safe and accessible options for people to travel, people of all ages and abilities and all modes of travel. So that includes walking, biking, driving, and using public transit. So what I heard in the presentation also, you had talked about how you envision people driving in, parking, and going to the business.
Mm-hmm.
So I see that as different than what we have said we want in the central business district. We want it to be a walkable area. We want people to be able to go from this area to the downtown, which you had said that you wanted to discourage, but our bylaw actually wants to
Didn't
encourage
say that I
that.
discourage them going to the downtown. I
Okay.
said to get out to the road, we want them to use the interior of the site because it's the safest option.
Okay,
There is an access, and as Mr. Connery pointed out, we have to make sure it's handicapped accessible as well.
yeah,
And we're trying to funnel people down, and certainly per the comments, if the town would prefer us to use existing sidewalk, crosswalks, we'll take a look at that and see how it works. I'm not trying to discourage that. I'm trying to avoid people walking on Spring and West where there aren't sidewalks. Although there are on the other side. So again, you use the existing sidewalk, you walk to the downtown.
right.
We want them to be able to walk to the train station, and it's not that much further to get to the restaurants and other amenities of the center.
Okay. So what I would like to see is that there's safe pedestrian and vehicle that they can travel throughout the site and to the site. So that's a particular concern of mine. So you mentioned the sidewalks. I have on here that we need the sidewalks to be ADA and those steps. I have in my notes, there needs to be an alternate
We'll take a
alternate
look at it,
route or
absolutely.
to eliminate those steps. So either, I would like you to consider either adding sidewalks to the site or possibly, with safe travel, improving the sidewalks
Okay.
on West and Spring. So, and Pat DeShane had mentioned in his memo, but this lot kind of basically functions like a parking lot, the parking around there. So we need to see all the dimensions of the parking, so the width and the length. It looks like the length is shown, the width is not. And then I'd also prefer to see an aisle width of 26 feet, but if you're proposing something less, right now you're proposing, I think, 20 in areas. If you could just demonstrate that that can be done safely.
Yep.
Are you proposing a fence next to the residential zones?
We aren't currently, no.
No, okay,
Certainly open for discussion if it's appropriate, but
okay. Okay, this is later, but we need location of fire hydrants, mailboxes, snow storage, and solid waste containers. I'll leave that for later. I had a question about the lighting. So if this area is truly an area for businesses, I want to make sure that it's sufficiently lit for people to frequent those businesses after dark, or after the sun goes down. You mentioned that you don't plan for a directory, but I would imagine that there's some kind of signage.
yes,
So that would
the
need-
general concept, at least as it right now, is it's going to be etched on the glass doors of each of the businesses. So as you drive through, you can say, it's Sarah's Engineering LLC. I'm trying to sell you already. Probably not going to move down there, but you never know. And then the residences would just have the unit numbers, presumably. But we're not planning on a big pylon like at CVS saying these are all the things. So yes, once you get in there, each unit will be clearly marked. But again, we want a common scheme, and that'll be regulated by the condominium association. So it's not, I don't know, plastic red and white next to engraved wood next to engraved glass, so that the whole thing has a common scheme.
Okay.
But as far as freestanding signage, other than directory signage that you want us for safety, we're not planning on doing that.
Okay. Yeah, just any,
Yep.
signage we'd need details for, and to make sure that it complies with the bylaw. And then a couple questions that I had based on your presentation. You mentioned that there is a single-family house that is over a hill. If you could
Yes,
just
it's on
point
top
out
of
where
the
that
hill.
is?
Do we have that on these boards? No, we don't. Yep, so you've got West Street here.
Uh-huh.
You've got the existing, that's the corner. You've got that building. Swan Pond actually comes in and goes this way. There's a strip between this site and this woman's house. But she is actually the closest abutter on the same side of the street. She's probably about equidistant to the ones across west. But her house is elevated significantly above the grade of the buildings here.
Okay,
And that's why I was saying it may be appropriate to talk about some off-site improvements, because we could put in the best 6-foot fence in the world at the bottom of the hill, and it doesn't do a single thing to actually help her. And we're willing to go outside the box if it's something that's desired. Again, it's not my property, so I'm not making any claims one way or another.
okay. And across West Street, that's zoned industrial. What are those parcels?
Across West Street?
Yeah,
I actually believe Mr. Manzo owns that and leases it to the state.
okay,
And I don't really know what goes on up there, but I think that's what it is.
okay.
Potter's Place is there. Developmental services place.
Okay. Can you get for us a plan that shows, you know, the adjacent parcels and the height of the buildings surrounding?
Yes? Sure.
Okay. Okay, and I just wanted to confirm, you had talked about an area that was in disrepair and that you were willing to improve. Do I have it correct that you're referring to the Cedar Pond Drive, like that small area, or?
All I was saying is there is a berm, and again, it's not on our property, so unless we have a discussion with the condominium trustees, and they may not be interested at all, and that's absolutely fine. All I was saying is it may be beneficial for the two large entities here to combine and make a better buffer. If they're not interested, we will do it completely on ours. But you can go out there and look at it. It was clearly installed, and at one point has trees on it. Now it's mainly scrub.
Okay,
So it's not really buffering anybody.
okay. Okay, you cleared that. Can
And
you
I
just?
do want to make sure, because we're talking about other people's property,
Yeah,
if none of what we've just talked about happens, we can still build the project and adhere to the guidelines, we believe. So
Oh.
this is not contingent on somebody else's property. It's just, I know there are concerns, and I expect there are going to be discussions in the next couple of months over this. That's all I'm saying.
sure, I just wanted to make sure that I understood which area you were talking about. And then, I guess my final question for today, can you just go over, you mentioned that there's 2 areas where you have greater than 15% slope. Could you just point out those areas again?
One is the corner, which you guys have
Steps.
already
Yeah.
talked about. Steps need to have handicapped ramps, so we'll have to figure it out.
Yeah,
And then the other one is right over here,
okay,
on the far side, I guess, of the site, where it slopes up towards the lady's house. And I apologize for not having her name off the top of my head, but that's
Okay.
not meant as a slight.
Okay.
But right in that area, the topography not on our lot is significant, and at this point, we want to make sure it's stable, but we're not, again, planning on going outside of our lot to do actual work.
okay. Okay, that's
Bill?
it, thank you.
I just want to say I share Sarah's concerns about the central business district, you know, what the town is trying to do through its zoning, making sure that this isn't just become another residential area, you know, where people buy the condominiums and don't really do the business. I can appreciate, you know, working with the, you know, the town inspection department, trying trying to manage that, but I do think that might be a challenge, so I don't, we're interested to see more how that would work and, how that would be controlled.
We're certainly willing to discuss it, and I will assuage your concerns as much as I can. But again, we're not here asking permission for an ownership structure.
Yeah.
But again, I echo your concerns. I get it. I've lived here I don't say as long as anybody, but as long as many. And I don't want this to turn into, I'm not speaking ill of Jimmy by any means, but I don't want this to turn into another building like is in East Walpole with one vacant floor. I think it's a waste, and I think it's a shame. And I'm going to leave that alone because I'm not here to throw stones at anybody else, but that's not what we want here. And I will work with you as much as I can within the site plan process.
And did you say you may carve, so you mentioned, I think at one point, having, the condominiums would be for both the business and residential as two separate condominiums?
We
or-
aren't sure, and a
Okay,
lot of
so-
that's going to be driven by banks.
But
It's how
would that-
people can get a mortgage.
Would that be the same owner owning both the residence and?
Yes.
It would have to be, because you have a staircase that goes up to the.
Correct. I mean, they'll
second
have
floor.
separation. There will be and again, I'm not getting into interior floor plans, but we anticipate you being able to walk from the street up to your house without having to go through the business. So if it's a foyer or if it's something, we haven't quite figured that out, but that's the idea. Because again, we're trying to keep the two uses separate. And it probably will be a single ownership for the entire slice. So again, I'm giving Sarah a business here. If we got Sarah's engineering, she can own the whole thing under her own name and have her business in the first floor. That said, again, I'm not going to try and figure out the entire ownership here, because we know a lot of people have sole practices, they have DBAs, there's a million and one different ways to form a business, and I'm not going to prevent someone for liability reasons from starting up a LLC so that something happens down there, they're not personally liable. And we will work through that.
And again, I also, second, just the interest in seeing what kind of businesses, why would this be different than what, someone could just do in a house today, in a residential area, having using a room, just understanding again, goes back to the types of businesses and.
I mean, the immediate one that comes to mind is, if you look at the zoning bylaw chart, and I forget exactly which subsections they are. I think it's like M and N, but I could be wrong. But there are two back-to-back sections that say home occupations for the following are allowed. And that says, but you can only have so many employees, you can only operate so, there's a lot of restrictions on it. And then you look at those same occupations and you look in our business districts and they're just allowed. So there may be a significant amount of overlap, but instead of having to go to the zoning board for permission to operate my business on my first floor, I can just do it. So that actually makes a big difference in a lot of people. I've represented plenty of folks in front of the zoning board, and the most recent one I can think of is a beautician shop, actually makeup artist. It's not really beauticians, so she has very, very specific clientele. And she went through the ringer to be able to use a 500 square foot renovated piece of the garage as her beauty shop. Had she bought a condominium here, she'd just buy it and start operating and not have 4 pages of conditions about what she can't do with her business. So you may see some of the same wording, but it's still very different, as opposed to what you can do in a residence or a residential area. It won't be any different than what you can do in the CBD.
So would you envision some of these businesses actually having a hired person, not just one independent person, but maybe having
There wouldn't be a prohibition on it.
Because
So they could have employees. I mean, the goal really isn't to have, again, high volume business, but I mean, my law firm has 3 employees, and if I had an office here, they could theoretically all come in, have a cubicle, and do their thing. We also have about 2 visitors a month, so our traffic actually would work just fine here. I'm not proposing that I move, but that's a good example.
And I like the idea that,
She doesn't like, you'd be closer to the train, though.
yeah, and I'm glad you're doing the signs. I mean, I think,
Mhm.
if you're gonna have a business on the ground floor, there should be some signage.
Yes.
On the.
We want it to be very clear that when you drive around, I'm going to whichever unit I'm going to.
So I have a lot of other same concerns, but the other one I'll mention that I think is very important, go back to the parking, the sidewalks, all these things have come up, but I just want to reiterate, just to highlight them again, and just looking at the flow of people going to be walking and people parking, it does seem very, very compact, maybe a little too congested if people will be walking around from the street through going to an office or.
We'll absolutely take a look at
So
that.
that, I think that's an area really needs to be looked at. The table 8.8.A1 is for the regulations for,
Yep.
that's, that has to be, that's what you should look at.
Again, it's our intention to be in front of this board for nothing more than a site plan, so we will make sure we conform with everything in the zoning.
And that would call for the 24 feet for the aisle.
Well,
width,
it
if it's
does.
90%.
But there is a difference in travelway and parking aisle. And so we have to take a look at that, and Pat may be 100% correct. I can't tell you right now, but it has happened in other sites where it's a travel lane only, it can be narrower. Where it's a parking aisle, it absolutely needs to be 24 feet.
So I know we're getting late, so I'll leave.
Okay.
But I do want to just again reiterate those major concerns and a lot of others that, that we will be coming up, I think, the next time, so.
Okay.
So I think the appearance, based on a lot of what we've seen come before us, this is much nicer looking than a lot of what we've seen. That being said, I'm concerned with a lot of the same things that have already been mentioned. I think it's from my standpoint, being self-employed, I look at myself living there, and I can't see how I would ever enjoy it, because I wouldn't be able to cut the cord, and I would think I would be working at all hours, downstairs. So I think, some people might fit this niche, but I think it's gonna be hard to find 24 to do that. That being said, that's not my concern. My concern is that they are occupied commercially. And I understand a lot of my questions, you can't tell me definitely, but if you can give me an idea. So are you looking to do it with deed restrictions through the condo docs? What are you
Yes.
thinking?
Basically, I'm envisioning the condo doc saying,
Very
you have to
restrictive.
do this, you can't do that, and I'm sorry that I'm not giving you concrete, I'll use one of the examples, you can't have a restaurant, because we don't want a restaurant, you have to have first floor commercial. It has to be inspected and approved by the town on an annual basis. So it's directive, it's on record, it runs with the land forever, or as long as there's a condominium there.
Now, can you tell me, Phil, if the building inspector, let's say he is doing annual inspections, and he comes upon one of these and finds that it's either being used inappropriately or not being used, you said he could take action. What can he actually do?
You can fine him $300 a day,
Okay.
and issue a cease and desist. And if that doesn't happen, he can get an injunction. Will that happen? I can't speak for him, but
Right.
what he can do is all of the above.
Okay.
You could basically take him to court and have the court say, you have to stop. And additionally, fine him civilly. But that's his discretion, and I'm not gonna tell you that
And the
Mike
position can
Yanovich or any
change,
of
it can
them.
be a different person in the position,
Mm-hmm.
and, are
Do you know how
you,
much money we've ever collected on that 300?
I know. That's why I'm concerned.
Zero. Because we get
Are
big
you
buck.
foreseeing having like a full-time property management on site, like an office that would be sort of, I hate to say big brother watching, but if there's a management office, someone might be less likely to break the rules. Do you know what I mean?
I do. Have we gotten
Just
that far
throwing that out there?
There will not.
There will not be.
Will it be professionally managed?
Yes.
So in the future, you had referred to a safe way to get to the center of town on the train. Can you show us pictures? You guys have great pictures. If you can show us that in the future of what you expect to,
Steve, I'd actually defer to you on this one, they're your pictures. Showing the access to the train station. Now, again, per some of the comments, this may get modified.
it'll change, right?
For what we're showing now.
Yeah, well, the intent is that all the residents could walk to the intersection of Spring and West, and then they'd have a safe managed across to get to the
So
west side.
to save you time and save everyone here time, maybe in the future, we could have, instead of just an aerial, we can see it a little better as to what.
Yes, I mean, we have images of the existing, but we can certainly expand upon
We'll
it.
get you clean pictures.
That's fine.
Yeah, we'll get, and we'll add to the proposed.
That would be,
And like
would be
one-
helpful.
I think she's more concerned off-site. There's one item we're willing to talk to the community about is whether or not it would be appropriate to add a pedestrian flashing system with a light.
Yeah, it might be a good idea.
No, we don't need any more of those.
You had said no high-volume use, so you're foreseeing restricting that by the type of business?
Yes.
Okay.
And
And,
if either you or I had an office there, I can't tell you that you're not gonna have someone in every half hour, but at least you're not set up to have 50 people sitting at tables at once.
right, right. So, although I like the look, and I know you have the right, I do have to say that I'm concerned. I am concerned about it being used properly. I'm also concerned with the congestion in the area. You know, right in our zoning, it says we have to secure safety from congestion, prevent overcrowding of land, and avoid undue concentration of population. And when you look at that, we have Liberty Station, within the past 4 years, I've been here 4 years on the board. And within the past 4 years, right before I got on, Liberty Station and Union and West were both approved. One has 152, one has 192 units. Pennington got approved while I was on the board. And we have Bristol Brothers at the end of West Street coming up that has been approved and will be built. So I am concerned. So if this should be seen through, we need to make sure there is no way that it is not used properly. Because we have so much that has come aboard that I don't see how the town can handle it all. I mean, it's, in such a short period of time, that's a huge amount of development in such a small area, and it worries me. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you.
John?
Couple of questions concerning the plans. It's my understanding basically that all the interior will basically be hard surface, asphalt or whatever, with the exception of your ring around the outside of grass and trees. And I guess in between the central buildings is also going to be grass and a few islands in front of some of the buildings. Okay. One of my concerns was that you'd have a commercial first floor and then apartments above it, and the first floor would stay vacant. With the fact that the same person's gonna be owning first floor and the rest of it, I'm less concerned there. Will echo the opinions of the others that we have to ensure that it's used properly, I guess is the right terms. That if it's gonna be commercial, that it's actually used in something that justifies its use as a mixed-use building. My thoughts of how it would work is basically you'll have people coming in, well, in some cases, it's gonna be the person working at home.
Right.
He's not expecting people to come in, and there won't be traffic. other people running a small business out of it, there'll be a limited number of people coming into them every so often. And the parking should cover whatever is needed, I assume. Lost my train of thought. It does look like at times it can become a very busy area, depending on time of day and the variety of businesses that are in the first floor. Has the traffic flow within the unit been examined?
Yes,
I noticed there seem to be some one-way directionals kind of.
yeah, the intent is to have one way throughout the entire complex to minimize conflict. And again, these businesses aren't intended to be those that attract customers or clients. But basically, yes, we have a one-way movement to minimize any type of potential conflicts with.
There do seem to be a couple of close points, but down in the section towards the circle and stairs, I guess that'd be the northeast corner, you seem to have a fairly wide area. Is there gonna be any striping or anything there to try to control the flow of traffic?
We didn't intend on adding striping, but we certainly could if it's preferred. The reason that it's more open there is to make sure there's adequate maneuvering space for the fire trucks.
Valid.
And one thing we've learned is we tend not to add additional striping where it's not necessary. If you have too much striping, it almost creates the image of a street. And when there's striping, people tend to, I hate to say it, drive a little faster.
Speaking of driving faster, will there be speed limit signs within the complex?
We could add small ones, but certainly
Yeah,
not
just
the
to
highway size.
Draw the attention to people that this isn't a street really, you're
Yeah.
driving along a driveway here. I noticed, it looked like you have some barriers, stop barriers as you go in and out of the entrances. Is that meant to just automatically rise as
Oh,
someone
no, those are
approaches
only
it?
the
or-
standard stop bars. Those are just the painted stop bars. There's no physical gate.
There's no physical, oh, so it's just a stop line?
Yes.
Okay. Oh. Looking at the architectural drawings, I'm curious about I see you have the basements on each of the units. And then in between the houses, there's areas marked off. Is there actually going to be basements there, or is that just a slab basically in between the two buildings? Like between units 1 and 2, on the ground floor, you have the garages above it. Down below it, is there actually a basement there, or is that just the garage just resting on a slab?
Garage should be on the slab.
So the garage between 1 and 2, is that?
Well, for instance, on the ground level, it shows garage between the two units.
Yeah.
Down
two
below,
garages.
on the ground level, you have mechanical storage in the basements. But between the two built units, is that just a slab at
Yeah.
ground level?
Yep, slab on grade, just a one-story garage.
When there are decks connecting two of the units, is there like a railing, a fence or something there?
There'll be like a
People out-
little screen between units, so you don't.
It's
see
not
them.
designed for you to climb over or any,
No.
it's a lot of times.
Want to
okay.
keep it contained.
Okay. I guess that's all my questions at this time. Thank you.
Are you all set? All right, my turn. Questions, or a couple comments. One of them, I think you're gonna you're gonna put it, is up on the top on Spring Street. You have to put another, crosswalk. You think about it, you're gonna come out of there, you're gonna funnel everybody down to the corner? Probably not. A lot of people probably, if they take the train, gonna wanna walk across right there to Spring Street rather than not going all the way down. And you might wanna think about a little sidewalk where they cross too, like you did on the upside of West Street.
Yep.
Okay. That's just on the plans. Now, this is a very unique plan, Mr. Mackey, and I'm gonna start saying some stuff, and so you're gonna have to get it checked out. There's a big difference between residential and commercial. Has the building inspector decided what code this is gonna come under? Is it gonna be, because I've done enough building. Residential's residential, commercial's commercial, and there are two different codes and two different factors. Has that been,
I don't know.
okay?
He has seen the plan, and conducted the department head review with it. I did not ask him about building code issues.
Okay, because it comes down to the way I look at this, because it does affect the whole plan of what we do here, is if it's one, let's face it, we know what you're gonna use it for, it's almost like a space next to extra bedroom. But now the only access for that entire unit into the basement, which you're supposed to have, is one stairway that's only accessible, and I believe you might have to have two, at least a bulkhead out, okay? But the other thing is, you don't have a second means of egress above your condo. The way you look at it, commercial, residential, they have two ways out. At least all the buildings I've done in my day. So you may be having a second floor if they're gonna, and that's gonna affect how this plans, okay?
Okay.
So, it, you know, he anchors in the back, and the buffer, however, that needs to be ironed out before we go further here, because that could change a lot of this stuff.
All right. We'll talk with him.
Well, I'll be a little perturbed if he says, no, this will work. No, you've got commercial, residential floats on its own, you're gonna need two egresses as we all do. We have a front and a back door. You don't need it down from from your house on your second floor, but you need it out, be able to get out of both ways. And this doesn't seem to provide that. And also the fact that you're going down into the basement, there's another issue there, so, from a commercial. But, given that, I would like you to give us a nice little paper on why you think this meets all the criteria, so that we can give it to town council to see if everything lines up.
What do you mean meets the criteria?
To me, it's not a commercial space the way it's being combined right now with the above. If the building inspector comes back and says you're gonna put a plaster ceiling and sprinklers there on the, and you can't access upstairs, you can't use it as common access,
Respectfully, the zoning bylaw has nothing to do with that.
but it has everything to do, Phil, with the fact that you're gonna need another egress in that.
And to get a building permit, I completely agree with you.
Oh.
This isn't a building permit.
I understand that, but what do you, then it,
And I'm not arguing that we'll go talk with Mr. Yanovich.
well,
and
Mr.
talk about-
Yanovich, I would expect that you're gonna have another stairway from the second and third floor.
And he may say that.
And
if
it's
he
gonna have to
does,
be,
we'll come
and
back.
we also have to see how it's gonna interface with the basement too, because that affects on how this whole plan.
All this board is doing is,
So I understand, please, don't tell me, you know,
Okay.
I've been doing this and we've known each other for a long time. I know within the confines, but I'm talking about stuff that's may pop out, that's gonna affect us. So I don't wanna go down the road and all of a sudden, everything looks good, and then all of a sudden you need to put a second floor stairway out that's gonna be in the buffer, or it's gonna be in the setback, or it's gonna be in something. That needs to be flushed out now. These plans look
fine.
pretty, but if you're gonna encroach outside the building, that's where we come in.
I agree.
So I would expect that for the next time.
Doug, can you take a look at that? Yes, we'll have it. We'll have something for you by then.
Or an opinion from our building inspector, or your
Yes.
opinion? Because
We'll
if
talk
it's
with the
just you,
building
we'll have to go
inspector.
back to him.
I understand that.
Okay, because that's the issue I see with this, because commercial and residential, two different things, and with only one way out, just like going out the front door, doesn't work, so.
We will talk with them and
Okay, so we
report
need,
back.
definitely need that to make sure that this is, what do you call it, done correctly. And you will have what can go in the first floor in your condo docks,
Yes,
and what can't?
yes.
Okay? I will say that I don't wanna see storage in there.
Yeah, that's fine, I think.
Yeah, there's my storage. Yeah, it could be there close. It's supposed to be a commercial use, so we don't need an extension thereof of the house upstairs, that's all. All right, so we definitely need to see that. But, once again, because it's a commercial use, and there's two different building codes for that,
We will meet with the building commissioner and report back.
and the last thing I say is, I'm not buying it, but what are the people on Spring Street doing when you walk by, right by the curb?
Currently, there's no side, is there? I want to make sure I'm not speaking here.
Okay, but I'm looking at, you're gonna have to have a back egress. How is that happening onto the Spring Street side without the sidewalk?
Well, you just said that we need to put in a crosswalk to get to the
No,
sidewalk.
no. Go,
Agreed to.
no. All right. This is for my own edification. All right, we'll go to the site plan here. I'm along Spring Street, okay? You guys are showing, I think, like unit 11, 12, 13, 14. You're right at the edge.
Yes.
You have an egress out? How is that working? You have to have a back way up, and I believe they show it. How is that being accommodated?
I guess I gotta step up.
Yeah, I know.
Sorry.
It's fine.
But in regards to building code issues, we've done research on the building code. Obviously, we don't want to have to put in exterior stairs or add to a plan that you've already approved. So we'll do our research, get it to the building inspector and get his agreement on it. But all those units basically have two means of egress at the front anyway. In the building code, it's a fully sprinkled system. The whole complex is sprinkled. The building code is written so that it allows a certain percentage of commercial retail connected to residential units. So the short answer is it's allowed, and we'll get you a letter on that.
Okay, but my concern is I'm looking at the back doors for 14, 15, they show a nice little door.
Yeah.
But you have to have a certain size pad outside there all the time, and I forget what it is, whether it's 3x3 or 4x4, but if you're only 2.67 feet away from the curb, and I'm not sure how that flies, that you can, I don't believe you can go out a back door and be on the street.
No, you can't.
So that's your back door you're showing here on those units, so.
We'll show the property line there, because there's enough room for a platform.
Well, I'd also expect that to be blessed by the building inspector, that
Yes.
you can go out there and that's good enough, and you can answer on the street, so those are,
You got his blessing.
does affect the site plan.
Hey, Mr. Chair, I just want to note
Yeah.
one thing that I think was very important, that we didn't go through all the details, but in Patrick's memo, he mentioned that it would be good to have a sidewalk along Spring Street. That might be, again, something to consider, or at least to have enough space so you could do a sidewalk on Spring Street.
They might have to have it for the codes to
Code.
meet that.
Yeah, because,
Well, they want a sidewalk along Spring Street, but that's obviously got to be in the town right away. That can't be on our property. So what I want to do is go back and show you where the property line is, where our back doors are, where we'd have to put a pad or a step down to the sidewalk. So, the town will have, or the developer hopefully will build a sidewalk on the town's right of way.
but you, the developer, would be willing to do that, possibly? Building the
I'm
sidewalk.
sorry.
You said the developer would build the sidewalk, could build the sidewalk?
Yeah, I'm not agreeing to anything.
No, but that could be a condition.
I don't want to get trapped here.
But I think, again, this goes back into the pedestrian, friendly development. Again, central business district, we want to promote people to walk there. It's a good opportunity to extend the sidewalk and extend the central business district from a pedestrian perspective by having a
No,
sidewalk.
it's a good point, and the egress from the back is a great point, so we'll definitely show you how that works.
Okay. All right. That's a little after 5 of 8. All right. We'll ask members of the audience, you get to come up here to the mic We need your name, address, plus you'll be on TV. That usually cuts my audience in half.
Nobody
We got a
watches
few
it, it's
people that like to
okay.
be up for a long time. So we'd ask to come up, identify yourself and the question and who you'd like to answer the question. If you're not sure, I'll point in the right direction for you. Yeah, if you want to do your letter.
You can read it. I do have since
Could you just come to the mic and just
Yeah.
state your name and address?
Oh, wrong place.
Address.
Mary Ellen House, 28 Teal Circle, which is in the village at Swan Pond. Since the delay, I've come up with more things I wanted to add to that letter. And of course, one of them being the bridge got hit again. You know, many times, our place is almost inaccessible because of the flooding under the bridge, the construction, and, you know, we're not against construction, I don't think, anyway. And it looks very lovely, but it's too much for too little a space. I mean, you just said 2 feet from the last end of the building, so someone walks by and they can knock on your wall. I mean, that's really close. But anyway, you know, there are 346 units in that whole complex. There are 3 complexes, and I guarantee you, at least 3 people on the board don't even know that. We all have our own rules, regs, and everything, but we are one little plot. We have 2 entrances, one off of Spring Street and one off of West Street, that encompasses those 3 communities. And, you know, we bring over $2 million a year in taxes, and that's a conservative figure, just from that complex. And we're like second-class citizens. You notified Highlands, you did not notify the village or the homes. And I know that you said 300 feet, that's all you have to do for notification. But we are one umbrella. We share the pools, the tennis courts. It's just the way that was built. And we are like second-class citizens. We're paying our own way. We do everything. We take care of the roads, and a lot of people don't know that. We do everything. And it's a wonderful community. And we had to put up with the construction from the Union and West, and you saw, I don't know if you went by during the construction, but on the corner of Spring Street, there were cars everywhere. Everybody ate their lunch in their trucks because it was hot, and I understand that. But trash everywhere, blowing into our community. We have to clean our own streets. We take care of our own trash, and that's not fair to us because we're already paying. We're paying twice, basically. And while everything looks very pretty, I've been a real estate broker for over 40 years. Tandem driveways do not work in residential, ever, ever. We have a hard time even in our own complex, people who park in their own driveway tandemly. And I'm trying to think some of the other things I brought up. The bridge is one thing. That's a really big thing, because floods all the time. And coming out onto Spring Street, where are all these trucks going to park when they're doing the construction? That is a big question. What about when the trains start up?
Oh, and when the train starts, I challenge your report on the traffic. Spring Street is a very narrow street, no sidewalks on either side. People walk to the train, they drive to the train. When people go back to their offices, there's going to be so much traffic, you're not going to believe it. And getting out onto Spring Street is not an easy task, or onto West Street. And you say walk on the sidewalk. Have you walked on the little bit of sidewalk there is on West Street? Anybody? You break your ankle. There's stone, trash, everything. You know, there was a car door there for 2 weeks. Right? I mean, we are like second-class citizens. I mean, I think the Public Works needs to get out of their truck and clean the sidewalks so that they're passable. And why aren't the crosswalks painted? You know, when the trains come in at 5:30 at night in the wintertime, you can't see them when they come in there. Everybody's got a dark coat on. And there should be a light there at this crosswalk for the people from the train. And also, Union and West should not be allowed to let the moving trucks park on West Street.
Thank you.
Can't get by the trucks. Someone's going to get killed, absolutely.
Okay.
And they have to park halfway on the sidewalk. But that's all I have to say, I think.
They won't let me go outside the house. You're going outside the whole property. All right, you had something.
It's a busy area.
Yeah, no, we're understood. I've driven down there, people are moving in with the moving trucks. You gotta, and the building inspector's always said, he does not he could drive by it, and if no one said anything, you're gonna keep driving. You have to call them and tell them there's an issue. That's the way they react to that. It's like the cops, you can call and tell them the guy's moving, I've seen enough of the moving trucks in front of the,
But they're not gonna move them. Why can't they unload in their own driveway?
well, the cops can make a move, because there's no standing there. They have no reason to stay there. You just gotta call the cops. As far as the DPW, Mr. Baldoff works for DPW, and I'm sure he'd be more than happy. So, everybody has issues. But tomorrow we'll be talking to Rick Mattson, DPW man, right? And tell him all the problems they've had outside of this. And you did talk about, why weren't you notified? Well, everybody in Mallard, and so, it's 300 feet, that's the way it goes.
I understand that now. I didn't know.
Excuse me, I've lived, I'm sorry, but I've lived there for 25 years, 30
I
years,
need you-
almost
I
30
need-
years. I have always been notified when something's happening on Spring or West. What was different about this project, and this is the biggest
Okay, I need your
project?
name and address, because if we go anywhere
And
from
I'm kind of
here.
angry about this.
Okay, what street do you live on?
Kathy
Oh,
Vitale, 45 Clear Pond. And that particular issue that just came up, I've been here for 28 years. I bought pre-construction, I've been here a long time. And anytime there's been any kind of construction on Spring or on West, we have been notified. So what happened? This is what made me suspicious, actually, of this whole project. Why are they trying to keep this secret from us? That's how it felt to me.
Well, what projects were you notified on?
Oh, there's been a ton of things that have happened on Spring Street and West Street. We get the notice in the mail.
But I don't know of any.
I
I've been-
don't know what they are. It's been
If
over
they didn't go through the
many
planning
years.
board, it might have a different, requirement for noticing.
A landscape garage was built past the sand pit.
Yeah, well, that's,
We got notified.
whatever, you have 3 separate condo associations
Right.
within it. So whatever touches it, if 2 of them touch, everybody gets notified in those 2. 1 touch, only 1 gets notified.
Officially, Spring Street does not touch the Swan Pond condominiums. It only touches Highland West.
But if it's within 300 feet, that's how the key is. So if if you had a house on
I
Spring
just-
Street,
It just seems very odd to me that the largest project that's happened this close to us, we didn't get notified about.
did you get notified when they did the big apartments?
No, because that's down the street further.
Okay,
So
well,
we
that's
didn't
what
get
this
that.
is.
But this one's right next to us. And that great big one that's there, we're private way, as we were just as Marilyn was just talking about. We pay the same taxes everybody else in town does, but we don't get the services. So we're a private truck, and yet, we're being forced into being a public street because all of a sudden, we've got all these extra people, and now you want to give us even more. They're now jogging on their streets. It's not a big deal, but they're walking their dogs, they don't pick up their poop. We're becoming a public street that we have no control over. And now you're giving us even more right at the entranceway. So if you want to do something good with that piece of property, make it a dog park, because they could do that.
All right. Anyone else? Others come on up, ma'am. Can you, if,
Paletta Clifford, 1 Drake Circle, the village at Swan Pond. Like Kathy, I have been there for 20-odd years, 25 plus. I have been notified of the units that were built, the duplex that was built on Spring Street, just before you get to, I think that's Allen Street. I was notified of a significant change in a building that's on the farther end of Spring Street. That was, I believe it was, I wish I could remember the name of the family. They had a pottery there.
Oh, right. The denim pottery stuff.
Yeah. I got notified of that. That's in both cases, that's over 300 feet.
okay, the 2-family zoning board, and the pottery would have been on the zoning board. It wasn't this board. So how you got noticed, I wouldn't know.
Doesn't
Okay.
matter, it just makes no sense. It should be across the board. This makes no sense.
Okay, what you might want to do is take this up with the assessor. He's the one that creates this. They go down, give him, and he says, so if he had a heavy thumb that day, might have went a little further, because that's all he does, press the button and gets it. So
Yeah.
if you want to ask him, you can ask him how it's, I mean, all we do is, they give the list to the assessor punches it in, and that's how the list is created.
Most of our municipalities do not know about this.
I would say probably 80 to 85% of the people don't know about it. And we've got a halfway decent representation here tonight. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right, anyone else? Oh, ma'am?
So I was not planning to speak because I did send Sarah quite a long email earlier today, but I'm Jen Healy. I'm at 23 Mallard Lane. I am one of your direct abutters. I'm going to look at this from my backyard. It's nice. You guys did a great job with the design. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. However, I'm concerned about the amount of building that you're putting on a very small space. I understand it is commercial property, and you've got the right to do that. But it would be nice if it was just a smaller development that fit in with the Swan Pond, the larger Swan Pond complex, and made it look a little bit more like a residential area. So that's my request. I know that's a request from a lot of people in here as well, that if you could just relook at that design, make it fit in that corner, regardless of the fact that it's a commercial property. Just an ask. So the other ask Sarah had brought up about the height. Myself and other residents, we're not necessarily concerned about the height as it compares across the street at West Street. We're more concerned about how it compares to our buildings, to our neighborhood, to the house at 162 West Street, which I don't think they're here tonight, actually. So we'd like to see how it fits in with our neighborhood, not with the commercial property across the street that's rented out to the state. Because quite honestly, that's tucked in the corner by the train station. No one even sees it, pays attention to it. I grew up here. I've never been up that road. So those are two kind of big things. Again, being a direct abutter, I am part of that Highlands West Condo Association. I'm sure that our organization would love to talk to you guys about how we make sure that we've got buffers and that you're not encroaching on our property. So I think those are probably my big ones that haven't been covered by everyone else. You guys did the traffic and the all the rest of it, and Spring Street, and God love you for trying to get an 18-wheeler down that road, because they don't come down that road. So I don't know how you're going to do it, but that's it, unless I missed any big points from my neighborhood.
Okay, thank
Okay,
you.
Thanks.
One point of clarification with 18.
What?
Yeah, no, it's just going down Spring Street. You're never going to get a truck down there.
Okay. Who wants to come up next? 1, 2, 3. You win.
So I'm kind of thinking what was said
Please.
about
We need your name?
Barbara McCallum, 172 Lincoln Road. Good old small town, Walpole, Mass. It was mentioned that there was going to be 24 condos, or 48, not quite sure. And the assessment of the amount of extra cars at rush hour, worst case scenario would be 33. That's at the 24. Now we go to 48, we've actually doubled, which didn't come up. So now we're talking 66 cars extra. Now, imagine a line of 66 cars on West Street or Spring or any of those roads going into Walpole Center, which at this point is already kind of over-citified with all the new condos that we've already been subjected to in the last couple of years. The monstrosities on West Street are hideous to start off with. I don't know that anybody's considered taking into consideration the longtime people that have lived in Walpole. This is our home, this is our community, this is our small town. We don't want it citified. We feel that we should have rights, we pay very exorbitant taxes, and maybe we just don't need any more of these condos at this point. Maybe give us a break. And, you know, the amount of cars going through that little small town It's just, it's not the town that we chose to live in. We paid a lot of money for our homes. We've worked hard. It's come down through our families. We pay high taxes because we want to live in a quaint, small, charming town that we have lived in and our families have lived in. And maybe it's just time to maybe put a stop to this for a while. And that's what I got to say.
Okay.
And I'm really concerned about the 66 extra cars that somehow went from 8 to 66, and I didn't get that one at all.
Right, there's 20. What they're saying is it's 24 units, if you count the condo, you just, each one gets one, so it becomes.
Well, he had said 24,
No.
or 48.
Think about this, you've got 24 buildings with commercial and the residential.
Right, but what I'm saying is he had said, they did the engineering, the traffic engineering at 24, but he also said, well, they made it 48, I'm not sure. So now you have to double that, which he didn't put into his equation. And now, again, if you have a condo, you could have 2 drivers in there. He cannot guarantee that they're all gonna be stay-at-home workers. No, they could all be going out every day into that street. And that's just, I think the big thing with everybody is, we've had enough of it. And, you know, we've covered a lot of condos in the last few years, and it's time to give it a stop.
Okay, thank you. Sir?
Steve O'Connor, 35 Clear Pond Drive in the village of Swan Pond. I just had questions and concerns really related to the parking and the traffic analysis. I think the parking numbers that are provided are grossly low. 24 units, 2 vehicles per unit. Everybody has 2 cars these days. And to allow 1 parking space for a commercial business, when we already heard today, there easily could be 2 or 3 people. It's not limited to 1 person. It's not necessarily the owner who's just at home. I think that'd be a doubtful case. It doesn't really allow for visitors. It doesn't allow for people coming to those businesses. And the traffic, I think the traffic count, it's a rough count. It's just a calculation. It's not much of an analysis. Things have been a little bit slower, if everybody knows, the past year. But trying to go to the train station or trying to be on Spring Street in the morning is brutal. It's late, later in the day, in the winter, it's difficult. There's not much lighting. Cars come down there. There's not much of a sidewalk. People do back up on it. West Street is already much worse with the addition of the Union and West. It's a decent building, no issue with that, but people crossing that street, somebody's gonna get hit sooner than later. The traffic is it's tough with that bridge, and it's tough crossing to get to the train, and it was tough 2 years ago. And it's just gonna get more difficult with more people there, so. I think it needs a more thorough traffic analysis, and I think the traffic or the parking count really needs to be ramped up, and maybe that means fewer units. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Nobody else?
Mr.
Okay.
Morosky, chairs up.
I don't know, I guess he's coming up.
Joe Moraski, 3 Buckwood Drive. I was listening to Phil Mackey go through his presentation, as he normally does, with respect to the bylaws and the site plan review requirements. And one that is of particular interest, and I'm going by the bylaws of themselves, was his presentation on the section 4, 13.9A4 of the site plan criteria. And it had to deal with the consistency with the Walpole Master Plan and with the most recent open space recreation plan. Now, the master plan, as the planning board knows, speaks extensively about Walpole meeting the state goals for permanent affordable housing, 10% under Chapter 40B. So my question is, does the planning board have to consider how this project contributes or doesn't contribute to us meeting the affordability of housing in the town? Because I think that the answer to that is yes, you do. And if you want to, you can obviously speak with town council on that. And I think the answer is also no, the project as it is currently being proposed doesn't contribute to adding affordable units to the town. As a matter of fact, I think what it does, as it is currently proposed, continues to gentrify the central business district, and it continues to densify the neighborhoods by putting pressure on the neighborhoods to absorb the affordable units by taking on all the Chapter 40B proposals. The other thing that concerned me in the presentation was the architects, a couple of the comments that the architect made. He said that the project is on the outskirts of the central business district, and it allows for a different type of building, and that his proposal, I guess, emulates our architecture, but not the same. The fact of the matter is, and I respect his professionalism, the fact of the matter is that it is in the central business district, and our bylaws speak extensively and specifically about what kind of architecture is required in the central business district. So I would ask the planning board to ask the applicant to review that section and make sure that each requirement of our architecture is met or not met, and if it's not met, why it's not being met, or if it's going to be waived, why it's going to be waived. The central business district has 3 flagship buildings right in the community, right in that downtown area. And I like the fact that we should continue to respect that architecture, whether it be Union Station, whether it be the Deacon Willett House, and whether it be Old Town Hall. So the architectural aspects of this proposal is of the utmost importance. Thank you.
All right, Joe, a couple comments. One of them is, we have it in the book, but it said suggested. It's not a requirement.
What's not a requirement?
The architecture, there is a section in there that says it's suggested. It's not a requirement. Well, you were here for that, for the other ones, so that's what we have.
I just don't want it to get, and I'm not, obviously I haven't had the opportunity to see what is being proposed, but at the same time, I want to see the same thing that Portland did in the beginning with the different color panels that were coming down the sides of buildings that made it more like South Beach, Miami, as opposed to downtown Washington.
Yep, and Joe, as you know, as you sat here, but you've been involved, we can't control 40B because we don't have it in the bylaw. We tried to do that, but that didn't happen, right? And do you remember one other thing, Joe? Do you remember what you proposed a few years ago? And there's only 2 of us were saying to do it, and it got squashed. You remember what that was? Put a moratorium on this stuff. Remember?
We put a moratorium.
No, we wanted to, didn't get the support to go forward.
We wanted to put a moratorium on it to see what the impact of the
Correct.
and Liberty buildings were.
And we're not even at that point yet because of the freaking COVID crap and all that, so we would have had that continued. So that's all, give you a little credit.
But I still think that it's worth asking town council to see how that master plan, if it's specifically in the bylaw, how does that master plan get interpreted?
Okay.
And Mr. Chair, may I make a comment?
Yep.
I mean, I think the way for affordable housing was to do the inclusionary zoning bylaw. And if we had done that.
No, okay, we're not gonna go there.
But I just want to mention that when you get into affordable housing.
We're not gonna get into what shoulda, coulda, woulda, and an advertisement for it, okay? This was, Joe and I supported this many years ago to shut it down for moratorium, and it didn't get out of this board. That's all I got to say for this. Yes.
Do I have to come up?
Yeah. You don't have to, but we want you to. We're making you.
Anyways, I was just thinking about the fact, when we were talking about how close it's going to be, the buildings will be to West Street. And I started all of a sudden just picturing when they were doing all the construction and all the construction people were parking. Now, people come down West Street pretty quickly. I was having a really hard time getting out and being able to see traffic coming at me. Because people are coming down there really quickly and the way people were parked and stuff. And now all of a sudden I'm sitting here and I'm picturing these big buildings there. And am I actually going to have a line of sight without getting myself killed?
Good
So-
question. I believe they did this traffic study, and they did it without buildings. Did you do it with the buildings?
Yes, yes.
Okay, well, that's your next, well, all right, we'll do it right now. If you can show everybody what you have.
We, let's see.
Can you show us?
Oh, I will. Yeah, it's on sheet C6. At all of the intersections of the driveways, and it's Spring and West, it's in purple, but we show that we meet the 200-foot sight line. But I also stated that we need to take a close look at the landscaping and make sure that all of the shrubs and the trees are out of the way.
Okay, if you can flip it around. We have those up here, if you can show everybody back there. Or just turn the easel for them, that's all.
Well,
All right,
I think
Phil,
it's
hold
easier
it
for me to
for you.
hold it. Yeah.
Because he's just sitting there.
Yeah.
Yes, it's right on. Can we just get rid of that strip of buildings?
Yeah, I know we've been, in this direction, it's gonna be tough to see, but we have purple lines that depict the measured site distance at all of the driveways, and that, and we are proposing the minor relocation of where the stop bar is. We feel that on Spring Street is just too far back. So we'd like to move it closer to the intersection so that we do get that line, right?
And it's not just trying to pull out and go around. It's also crossing the street, and I do take the train once in a while, and you feel like you're gonna get killed there.
Yeah.
Because it's.
And we are going to work with the community, that we will present it to a more
That's something we'll discuss with Carl.
Yeah, well, there's one in front of the Union now, but again, like I said, I saw somebody almost get killed there yesterday, so.
No, we are concerned, and, you know, as Phil said, we're gonna work with every town department.
They shut that one down because it clicked all night today. That's why, because it was working initially, but it's not going all the time. You have to press the button, but before it was blinking and clicking the whole time. So if you lived right there, in that apartment, you got all this. You know, I want to be the devil's advocate. I'm a mother, I'm a hairdresser. I'm not, but I am. Now I've got 2 kids. Where do they ride their bike? On that narrow street?
Yeah.
It's one pond. That's, we get it every dog walker from 95.
Well, I understand, but if you also understand the law, because I ride a bike, but I follow law. I don't like these guys who blow through the intersection because I'm on a bike. They gotta follow the same law as a car, and they choose not to.
Where are they gonna go? There's no space in there. There's no space.
I understand, they're gonna ride on the street like you should.
It's going to be coming into Swan Pond. We're becoming a public road, even though we're
With all these
dedicated
strangers among
private.
us.
We've got so many strangers in there now. It's getting nerve wracking. And like I said, we pay the same taxes everybody else does. We don't get the services, and yet you're forcing us to be a public road.
You guys don't have private,
Everything's private.
We have,
Yeah,
we have,
the big signs.
we have to pay extra for trash.
I know, I understand that, but do you have signs that says you can't, it's a private road?
Prevent cameras.
I have a question.
Or maybe you might, I'll just throw this out to the association, is, why don't they hire private security for?
Oh, great. Because
No,
our-
no, let me finish.
Because our condo fees aren't
No.
high enough. Okay, it's like double taxation.
Wait, please, Hold up, and I'll tell, you don't get me going double taxation, because you guys are on a small lot, so your house is actually a little bit cheaper than if you bought North Walpole the same size, we know that. So, anyway, I'm not telling you private security all the time. Get a guy there for a week. Pretty soon people get the message and they'll come back, you know what I mean? That's all, just try something to that effect.
Until the next condo's built.
Maybe Mr. Mackey can answer this question. Who's gonna do the trash?
For this, the condominium association.
Okay, so it's not gonna be town.
No.
And all
This will
commercial,
actually look
just so
very
you understand,
similar.
everybody understands, all commercial, we don't pick up the trash for you.
Condominiums are all,
The town
No, I know
is gonna
condominiums are
provide-
all
private.
condominiums are private, they all have their own trash.
No, they don't.
Yeah, they don't.
No, they don't all.
Who don't?
Lilac. Town.
Where's Lilac, off of Kendall? Yeah.
That's not a condo. Lilac's not a condo.
There's a couple of 2 units over there, but I don't know
Considered
what.
two-family?
I can't think of the street name.
Duplexes or something?
There are a couple of them,
Yes,
smaller complexes, that they get in town.
probably why. Right.
I think Gill Street too. Gill. I mean, it's hard to swallow that, you know? We're paying high taxes.
Well, if, I don't know anything about Gill, but if they're getting it, they shouldn't be, so turn them in. Right? You laugh, but I would if they're getting away with it. I know some of you people live there for a long time. I think a group of people from Swan Pond, what, 15, 20 years ago, tried to get trash?
We did, it didn't work.
Yeah, because that was in the original approvals, so.
Well, actually, we would get it now, but it would cost us a fortune for the attorney. No, I would pick up from condos now.
The problem you have is it's a private road and entrance. Oh, I gotta ask, I know this had nothing to do with them, but I got a captive audience. School buses go down there?
No.
Gee, isn't that funny? The preserve they do, which burns me. I know, that's what I don't like. See, no, I'm agreeing with you on that. They go down the preserve, which is like, why? It's private, they're not supposed to. And I didn't get a great answer from the school department, other than where they're gonna go and every, no.
No, we really don't get anything. I have a question, just back to this issue.
I'm not gonna make you go up, just name it, just name.
I just want to know, is this a done deal? Is the land already purchased and they are going to be able to build something?
Is it a done deal? No, not, that's why we're all here. They own the land.
They own the land?
They own the land, so they have to comply to everything within the rules and regs.
But you still have the authority or the ability to make changes, to
Yes.
ask them to make changes?
Correct.
Based on the.
Yeah, we can't sit here and go, we don't like it, you're done.
Okay.
They have to go through, check each thing off to make sure. That's why you as the public is here. You bring up some interesting things like that. And so we make sure that everything gets done so that it's done proper.
But at some point, as long as they go by the letter of the law, they will be able to build.
And what we've required them to do. We can't just blatantly turn them down, because they'll just sue us and they'll win anyway.
Right.
But that's why we're all here. You're trying to get something to work for everybody.
Something that's acceptable to the neighborhood.
The residents would be very happy to have that whole corner cleaned up, because it's not particularly attractive. And when you pull into Swan Pond, it is lovely. If you've never been there, take a ride through. It's quiet and it's lovely.
Well, you just made a very good suggestion, and I have some property, and I always keep mine up because I want to keep my neighbors happy. Actually, they don't like me because I keep it better than theirs. That's the truth, but still, I want everybody. So what you said, I would take that as a suggestion from these people. Clean it up and make it at least decent until this goes through, when and if.
I actually like the concept.
Well, I will give them credit, they have been growing grass out there, you cleaned it up after the construction, so I'll give them some credit. You know, we're
Okay.
to bash them. They're doing it.
So you got a few pluses there.
Can we clap to that?
2 claps.
The concept is really neat, I can see it, I can see a lot of stuff. My biggest problem with the whole thing, it's too many. I think it's too many units. I think if you could drop it down from the 24 units down to 18, It would, you know, I'm not even saying half, I would prefer half, but I would give you the 18. I just feel it's too crowded. When the architect was showing us the building, okay, and you had the street, and you saw the shade coming, there was no light. There was no light, there was next to no light on that street.
Expires
Because it was too close. So make it, it's more spacious.
We're cleaning,
And I
we're
think
just
you might
cleaning.
get, more people to come. I just don't think 24 is just too much. It would make, reworking the space maybe, would give you a little more open area for, a little bit of lawn or, you know, just flowers, no
I like
green
those
space.
flowers.
There's no green space.
There's no
What'd you
green
have?
space in there.
There's no place to sit on your lawn chair.
I like the orange and the lemon.
We're taking notes, so we'll have discussion.
Just let it go, please.
Miss,
Yeah, we go through them, no direct.
You know what?
no, we're just gonna go home. Have at it.
We can always do that, but in the
Yeah.
context of the hearing, all
That's where I'm
comments
going
go
with.
through you.
So you hear all the people here.
We did.
Have you met with all the people here?
No.
Well, I would think that you guys might all meet sometime in the near future and hear some of the stuff that they have to say. I know you won't agree with everything, probably won't agree with anything, but at least you've heard them out and you can hear both sides. It'll make it simpler for these hearings too.
Will? We've got a laundry list of homework. We will meet as appropriate.
So you're gonna keep that in consideration?
I am going to absolutely consider
Does-
that.
And does the
It's
condo
pro-
association have a meeting room if they want to do it?
Yes, yep.
Probably more important to me, but there are other people we also need to discuss based on the comments from here.
Okay, no, I
So-
understand. It's just to keep that out and
Yep.
you'll bring the cookies, right?
They got the room, we'll bring cookies, it's fine.
We need extension, so how about
I
through
believe so,
Halloween?
yes.
Or are you gonna give us more?
Well, when are we realistically looking at meeting again? Because I know
We
there's
can't
a-
not meet next, in
I
the
know,
16th.
and I'm not
whatever.
asking for that. I'm actually asking, is it even feasible to meet in October? And I don't know what your schedule looks like. If we
Well,
can
I
meet the
don't-
second meeting, that'd be great.
What's
If
second?
not-
October 21st, there's nothing on there that night.
There's nothing on the 21st.
All right, then I'll extend through the 31st, and we can,
Of October?
yes.
Okay. Make a motion to allow the applicant to, extension up through October 31st, 2021. Do I have a second?
Second.
Do I have a second? All in favor? Aye. All right. We don't know what we got any, we'll do it 7:30. How's that?
That's fine.
Okay, this meeting will be continued till October 21st at 7:30. This is the only time you're gonna hear it out of us, and so, we'll be up on the website. To the Highland people? No, we don't like those people. We only send to do what we like, or who isn't gonna give us grief. I think we missed a few, though. Thank you. And that was, make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.